The moment this guy opens his eyes, the very first thing he sees is a pair of tiny, chubby baby hands. Looking up slightly, he catches sight of the Runcandel clan members. And surprisingly, every single one of them looks incredibly young. He even spots Gilly, his childhood nanny. Smile, young Master Jin. Gilly beams with pure joy. Jin looks around and notices dozens of swords thrust into the ground. But the most striking one is Barisada, the legendary blade of the first patriarch. This scene is identical to the selection ritual from his infancy, and before he even realizes it, Jin starts crawling right toward Barisada. He quickly puts two and two together. He has regressed, waking up as a 1-year-old Jin Runcandel. In his past life, this was the exact spot where he chose the founder's sword. Everyone hoped he would grow up to be a powerhouse and lead the clan, but instead, Jin ended up being a complete loser. He showed absolutely zero talent in swordsmanship and was eventually kicked out of the Runcandel family. It was only on his deathbed that Jin learned the truth. Someone had cursed him with a 9-star curse called the Illusion Blade. This curse was what devoured his innate talent, turning him into the laughingstock of the family. Fueled by these thoughts, Jin crawls even faster, soon reaching out to touch Barisada to the absolute delight of the entire clan. This might play out just like his past life, but this time, he is taking full control of his own destiny. After claiming Barisada, Jin is sent straight to Storm Castle to begin his new life. 6 years fly by, and Jin is now 7. Clan rules dictate he has to stay here until he turns 10, which means he has 3 more years to go. Honestly, life here is incredibly boring, and to make matters worse, Jin still has to deal with his older brother's childish pranks. It is just like his past life. For instance, today, while he is quietly looking for a book to read, a maid suddenly lets out a blood-curdling scream. Turns out, she walked into Jin's room to clean and found a slaughtered bird, completely mangled and covered in blood. Jin looks at the dead bird without batting an eye, knowing full well that his brothers are the only ones in Storm Castle petty enough to do this. Right on cue, the mocking laughter of Daytona and Haytona echoes down the hall. They are 9-year-old twins, the 11th and 12th siblings of the Runcandel family. The little punks actually look disappointed that the maid found the bird first instead of their baby brother. What do you think? Do you like the present your big brothers got you? Are you crying tears of joy yet? Jin stares at the bird, silent, as memories of his past life rush back. He remembers hearing that shortly after he was exiled in his past life, these two grew up to be cold-blooded killers who treated human lives like garbage. Seeing how they are torturing an innocent bird at just 9 years old just to mess with him, Jin realizes it makes perfect sense how they ended up as monsters. Hey, don't go crying on us now. It is a hideous look, Haytona sneers, but Jin just keeps staring at them in dead silence. Hey, are you deaf? Or are you too good for us now just because destiny chose you to be the next patriarch? Jin remains quiet, and his absolute indifference drives the 9-year-old twins completely insane with rage. They decide to stop talking and throw hands instead. But as Haytona lunges forward to throw a punch, his fist is caught and locked in a vice grip by a kid 2 years younger than him. You two are way too loud. Shut your mouths. Haytona is stunned by the effortless, bone-chilling coldness in his little brother's eyes. But the real shock comes next when Jin unleashes a devastating punch right to his face. One punch is nowhere near enough. Having endured their bullying across 2 lifetimes, his bottled-up rage officially explodes. Jin uses the twins as human punching bags, unleashing a relentless barrage of blows. Once he leaves them sprawling on the floor, bruised and broken, he delivers a cold warning. From now on, you'd better stay the hell out of my sight. Young master, what on earth is going on here? A knight named Khan suddenly bursts into the room. Jin quickly suppresses the residual aura, still crackling in his hands. Khan stares in horror at the unconscious twins on the floor, their clothes torn and their faces beaten to a bloody pulp. Meanwhile, Jin stands there perfectly clean and tidy, looking like he didn't even lift a finger. They just suddenly started fighting each other, Jin replies smoothly. Naturally, Khan doesn't buy a single word of it. I'm sorry, what? The knight asks. Did you not hear me? I said they suddenly picked a fight with each other and knocked themselves out. At this point, the truth doesn't even matter. Looking at the expressionless face of this 7-year-old child, Khan realizes that even the youngest Runcandel heir is just as terrifyingly ruthless as the rest. Nodding, the knight says he understands and picks up the twins, intending to carry them to the infirmary. But Jin stops him in his tracks. No need for that, Khan. My brothers need to go somewhere else. Follow me. Khan hesitates, but doesn't dare to disobey. Heeding his young master's command, Khan carried the twins outside along with Jin. Outside Storm Castle, a heavy rainstorm was raging. Jin ordered Khan to dump Daytona and Haytona under a large tree, then bury the little bird in a small grave right in front of them. Khan looked quite uneasy at the sight. "Young Master Jin, do you really want to leave them out here like this? The storm is only getting worse." Yet, Jin's face remained completely expressionless. He calmly stated that his older brothers needed this punishment to understand the gravity of what they had done. Knowing he couldn't change the boy's mind, Khan had no choice but to follow Jin back inside Storm Castle. But just moments ago, he had clearly felt a powerful surge of energy radiating from Jin, and Khan was certain it wasn't aura. Could it be mana? Khan thought to himself, if that was the case, this was no longer a simple sibling squabble. He had to report this to the Patriarch immediately. Immediately after, Khan ordered his subordinates to bring him a horse. Despite the pouring rain, it seemed he planned to head straight back to the Runcandel main estate. In truth, this was exactly what Jin had anticipated. He knew very well that Khan wasn't just a guardian knight protecting the children at Storm Castle, but also their supervisor. To Khan, Jin's energy felt just like magic, so there was no way he would let this slide. But in reality, it was spiritual power, the sole proof of the contract between Jin and Solderet. Thanks to that power, he knew the contract remained valid in this life. Furthermore, the curse immunity granted to him by Solderet under the contract had helped him break free from the illusion blade curse. Simply put, the useless, trash, youngest son of the Runcandel family was officially gone. In this life, he was determined to make things completely different from his past. And if that was the case, the very first thing he needed to do was meet his father. It didn't take long for Khan to meet the Patriarch of the Runcandel family, reporting the entire incident along with his suspicions. The Patriarch remained silent, deep in thought for a few seconds, before ordering Khan to assemble the knights. He wanted to go see his youngest son in person. Soon, the eldest Runcandel siblings who made up the vanguard gathered. There were 7 of them in total, bringing 200 knights under their command. Well then, let's head to Storm Castle. The Patriarch of the Runcandel family declared with authority. The gravity of the situation lay in the fact that his words were an emergency mobilization order. Because of this, his eldest children each carried a different state of mind. "Do you know anything about this, Brother Dipus?" "I just asked Luna, but I bet she doesn't have a clue either." "What a pain. I was in the middle of fighting magicians and got dragged back for this," Mary Runcandel complained. She was the 7th child of the family. "The Tona twins are leaving Storm Castle next year. Maybe father is going there because of that, or perhaps to see our youngest brother." Dipus calmly replied. He was the 4th child of the family. "The youngest? Ah, right. At his 1-year-old selection ceremony, that brat chose the founder's sword. How could I forget about that? But would father return just for that?" Well, there's no way to tell what he's thinking. They kept bickering back and forth until Luna Runcandel, the eldest sibling, signaled them both to be quiet. Mary didn't dare say another word, but she kept staring at her father's back, unable to stop wondering. She couldn't understand why he would travel all the way to Storm Castle just to meet Jin. Was that kid really that extraordinary? The Patriarch's arrival came as no surprise to Jin. So, while Gilly anxiously and excitedly helped him dress, he remained completely calm. Jin knew Khan was a bit simple-minded, so he probably wouldn't tell the Patriarch outright that Jin used magic, but would simply report exactly what he saw. And that would raise a massive question, forcing the Patriarch to personally come here and see for himself what kind of power his youngest son could use besides swordsmanship and aura, and to determine if that power, or Jin himself, could become a useful asset for the family's future. Just as Gilly finished getting Jin ready, the Patriarch arrived. The overwhelming presence of the knights he brought with him was truly terrifying. But the first thing the Patriarch did wasn't to meet his youngest son. Instead, he ordered his men to bring the twins, Daytona and Haytona, before him. "Daytona, Haytona, I hear you boys got into a fight with Jin. Tell me, what did you do wrong?" These two kids were usually incredibly arrogant, but standing before their father, they couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Yet, even now, they stubbornly kept their mouths shut about their own faults, claiming that Jin was the one who injured them first. They even tried to emphasize how strange his power was, insisting it wasn't aura, but felt like magic. Both of them knew very well that magic was strictly forbidden in the Runcandel family, which was why they tried so hard to focus on it. "That's right, father. If Jin really used magic, we need to interrogate him immediately before he finds a way to hide it." Standing nearby, Mary and Deepus could only sigh in deep frustration as they listened to this. Maybe they all knew just how notoriously devious and cruel those twins were. The two of them were eager to outdo each other in laying the blame, but their father suddenly cut them off without a second thought. Enough. Listen to me very carefully. If you keep acting like this, you won't survive for long in this Runcandel clan. The twins seemed shocked that their father wasn't taking their side, but he had absolutely no intention of listening to their excuses anyway. After all, his main reason for returning today was to see his youngest son. Right after that, the patriarch ordered his subordinates to bring Jin out. Walking into the main hall, Jin saw the Tona twins gritting their teeth as they turned back inside. This wasn't surprising at all. Even in his past life, Jin knew that his father, Chiron, was the strongest, yet most heartless man alive. He was hailed as the Knight of Genesis, the absolute pinnacle of a demigod. But before receiving those grand titles, he was just an ordinary human being. However, after earning his title, Chiron gradually lost all mortal emotions. He became a man who cared only about the honor and the future of the clan. So to him, someone with absolutely no talent for swordsmanship like Jin in his past life was nothing but worthless trash. The twins were probably in total shock from their father's cold shoulder, but that was nothing compared to what Jin had endured in his previous life. But this time, things were different. In this life, no one would ever look down on him again, not even Jin Runcandel. In the main hall, countless eyes were locked onto Jin. He was currently in the body of a 7-year-old child, but his soul belonged to a man who was nearly 30, so of course, a situation like this didn't scare him in the slightest. Opening the heavy doors of the grand hall, Jin walked in with steady steps. He then knelt before his father, requesting an audience with the patriarch. This time, Chiron was the one taken aback when he heard his youngest son address him as patriarch instead of father. With all of my older siblings, so many guardians, and over 100 clan members gathered here, I assumed you came today on official business, patriarch. I thought addressing you as patriarch would be more appropriate, Jin explained calmly. Hearing such an answer come from the mouth of a 7-year-old child left everyone in disbelief. Chiron was secretly quite pleased, though his face remained completely emotionless. But I came here for a different reason today, so you may call me father. Now, I will ask you the same question I asked your brothers. What do you think you did wrong? Jin clenched his hands into tight fists. Then, in front of more than 200 people in the hall, he declared loud and clear that he only did it for revenge. Watching this magnificent spectacle, Mary couldn't help but smirk. She thought her little brother was turning out to be quite the badass. Father, as Runcandels, we pay back what we owe. We return kindness with kindness, but we always settle our scores, Jin said. His answer made Chiron fall silent for about 5 seconds. He then ordered everyone to leave the room, leaving only his youngest son behind. The knights exchanged puzzled looks, quietly wondering if the youngest young master had just passed the patriarch's test. No one dared to guess what Chiron was thinking, but they all felt that Jin confronting his father like that was incredibly impressive. Once only the two of them were left in the hall, Chiron spoke. I dismissed everyone because I have a personal question to ask you. The Tona twins told me you possess an unusual power. Our Runcandel family strictly forbids the use of magic, because if you touch magic, you will never be able to reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. So, what power did you use? Chiron didn't hesitate to threaten Jin, making it clear that if he really dared to mess with magic, he would not let it slide. But Jin knew he would be fine. In fact, once his father found out about this power, there was no way he could turn a blind eye. And so, right in front of Chiron, Jin summoned the power that Solderet had bestowed upon him through their contract. Father, even I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if it's magic or aura. If you don't mind, could you help me identify this power? Watching the energy manifest in his son's palm, Chiron couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock, because he recognized that this was the power belonging to the very founder of the Runcandel clan. Witnessing the dark power surging from his youngest son, coupled with the fact that Jin had chosen Barisada's sword when he was just 1 year old, it made Chiron Runcandel wonder if this child was truly destined to become the patriarch of the clan. Seeing Chiron lost in thought, Jin spoke in a low voice. Father? Your power belongs to Solderet, the god of shadows, Chiron replied. Although Jin knew Solderet had granted him his power, this was the first time he learned that the entity was also known as the God of Shadows. According to his father, many years ago, Solderet had signed a contract with Tamar, the founder of the Runcandel clan, and had stood by their side ever since. But since Tamar passed away shortly after, Solderet never appeared in Runcandel again. As a descendant, Chiron didn't know the reason why either. However, he felt that Solderet was now attempting to connect with the Runcandel clan once more. And this time, it was through Jin. "Father, I'm a bit curious," Jin asked shyly. "That deity, is that god stronger than you?" Chiron hesitated for a moment, then admitted that he didn't know, since he had never faced him. Fighting a god. Hearing that answer, a wry smile crept onto Jin's face. "I've never fought a god." That was easily the most arrogant response he had ever heard. But then, out of nowhere, Chiron reached out and patted Jin's head. "My son." "That is a good question. Thanks to your naive question, I've just found a great topic to talk about. Visiting you today was definitely the right decision." Then, Chiron turned the question back on Jin, asking how he wanted to use Solderet's shadow energy. Naturally, having already lived a full lifetime, Jin knew exactly how to answer this wisely. So, he claimed he wanted to use that power for the sake of the clan, fully expecting his father to be pleased with his answer. But suddenly, Chiron burst out laughing. "Aha! What a ridiculous lie. You beat your older brothers to a pulp and threw them into a storm, and yet you claim you want to use this power for the clan? Now, tell me the truth." As expected, Chiron wasn't going to let him off that easily. Jin clenched his fists, feeling a bit tense, before firmly stating, "I want to use this power for myself." His face was young but solemn, and his voice carried absolute resolve. Chiron scrutinized his son for a long moment, with hawk-like eyes, before finally responding, "Fine, I like that answer. I'll be keeping a very close eye on you from now on." With that, Chiron turned and walked away. Only when he was absolutely sure he was alone in the Great Hall did Jin finally let out a deep breath. Standing before his father was incredibly nerve-wracking, but he figured he had safely passed the first hurdle. Not only did he secure permission to use the shadow energy however he pleased, but he also managed to raise his father's expectations. This was an outcome Jin had never expected, especially since in his past life, Chiron wouldn't even look at him after realizing he had zero talent for swordsmanship. As night fell, the rain poured even harder. Before the knights departed, Mary lingered behind to give Jin a gift, calling it a special present just for him. "Little bro, cook this up, chew it well, and get strong as fast as you can. Got it?" Mary left him with that advice and a mischievous smirk before heading off with the rest of the knights. Back at the storm castle, Jin and Gilly opened the box Mary had given him. To their shock, inside lay a glowing red phoenix heart. Jin hadn't anticipated this at all. Handing a phoenix heart over to a 7-year-old kid was the kind of sheer madness only Mary could pull off. Mary Runcandel, Jin's 7th sibling, was a 6-star knight, widely known as Wind Fury. But she had another nickname that very few people knew about: the Mad Woman of the South. The reason this battle-crazed sister had gifted him a phoenix heart seemed pretty obvious. She was warning him to get strong quickly so he could actually stand a chance as her opponent. If he consumed it at such a young age, he wouldn't just gain fire resistance. It would act as an elixir, boosting his strength as he grew. Plus, it was highly useful, since a 6-star mage would need it to safely summon a phoenix. Jin still planned to secretly train in magic, and he hoped to summon a phoenix in this lifetime. Before long, Gilly brought in a bowl of soup made from the phoenix heart. Just moments ago, she had been in an absolute panic, but once she calmed down, she realized Lady Mary had actually given her young master an incredible gift. Jin was about to dig in, but the starving, greedy stares of the Tona twins made it impossible to swallow a single bite. "My dear older brothers, if you have something to say, spit it out already." Daytona and Haytona looked embarrassed, but swallowing their pride for a taste of phoenix heart was a trade they were more than willing to make. So, they began to beg quite smoothly, acting as if that poor bird incident had never even happened. "Well, it's nothing really, but it seems like that's a bit too much food for you to finish all by yourself, don't you think?" "Yeah, I saw Gilly carry up a huge bowl. Do you guys want some?" Jin had no trouble seeing right through them. Seemingly just waiting for him to say those words, the twins nodded eagerly. "You guys can have some, but on one condition." And so, that very night, Jin forced them to dig a tunnel not far from the storm castle. Grumbling and cursing, they dug away. "Why? Why the hell do we have to do this? Yeah, there's absolutely nothing here. Why are we doing this? And what if someone catches us digging? What are you talking about? If anyone finds out, our little brother is the one who'll get punished. What could possibly happen to us? Good point. We just need to do what he says so we can eat that phoenix heart soup. Still, don't you think our little brother has been a bit terrifying lately?" Despite their constant complaining, neither of them stopped digging. completely driven by the promise of a single bite of Phoenix heart. And they probably had no idea that the spot they were so diligently digging up was right outside a secret chamber. Inside, the body of a mysterious man was being preserved with extreme care. It wasn't until midnight that the disheveled twins finally returned. Just looking at them, you could tell they were utterly exhausted, and the only thing they wanted right now was that soup. Jin had already finished his meal, and while he did save some for his two older brothers, he only left them exactly one spoonful each. Tona and Dona stared at each other, their anger instantly boiling over. "Hey, little bro, just one spoonful? Isn't that a bit too little?" "Well, I said I'd give you some. I never said how much. But hey, I kept my promise, didn't I? So, bon appetit," Jin replied, totally nonchalant. The two boys were absolutely fuming, but they still had to say thank you for those two measly spoonfuls of soup. Meanwhile, Jin had gotten exactly what he wanted, basically tricking them into doing hard labor for next to nothing. With the rain still pouring down, Jin threw on a cloak and headed toward the tunnel his brothers had just finished digging. It seemed the Phoenix Heart soup was a massive motivator. He had expected them to do a half-assed job, but they actually did surprisingly well. The cave entrance was right in front of him. Given its thickness, even a simple one-star spell would be more than enough to blast it open. Jin looked left and right to make sure nobody was tailing him. He used to feel so helpless, watching the mana in his body grow stronger every day without being able to do a single thing with it. But today, he finally had the chance to let some of it loose. Jin's surging magic instantly shattered the cave entrance. Before him stood a massive door, which was the entrance to the Runcandel clan's secret chamber. In his past life, he never had the chance to step foot in here. Standing before this door now, Jin couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Opening the chamber required a password. Recalling his memories from his past life, Jin took a deep breath and spoke. "The child of Runcandel has come to control Murakan." With a loud rumble, the heavy gate began to shift and slowly swung open before him. The Runcandel secret chamber was where the clan kept the secret texts of every family they had defeated over thousands of years. The place was massive. Normally, only the clan's vanguard, including the adult Runcandel children who had proven their swordsmanship, were allowed inside. In his past life, Jin never had that privilege, but one of his older brothers had let slip quite a few details about this place. His brother had shared it, thinking Jin would never be able to use the information. But now, it had become the key that allowed Jin to sneak in, even though he was still underage. Once inside, the first thing that caught Jin's eye was a mysterious man suspended inside a giant glass capsule. As he stepped closer, he noticed that the man's face was covered in tiny black scales. This made Jin wonder if the man was even human, and why such a creature was being kept in the Runcandel secret chamber in the first place. But then, Jin remembered the password he had just used to get in. The child of Runcandel has come to control Murakan. A sudden realization hit him. Wait, don't tell me. Is this the Black Dragon Murakan? Rumor had it that the Black Dragon Murakan had been defeated by the very first patriarch of the Runcandel clan and put into a deep slumber. But Jin had always assumed it was just a myth. After staring at the man for a while, Jin decided he couldn't afford to get distracted right now. He turned his attention back to his main goal, which was finding those secret texts. Little did Jin know, the very moment he turned his back, the fingers of the Black Dragon Murakan twitched. He finally made his way into the room, overflowing with the secret records of various clans. First, he searched for the records of the Ken clan, since they were also a family of swordsmen. But after reading through them for a while, Jin felt that this was a bit too difficult compared to 3-star magic theory. He wanted to take it back to study it at his own pace, but that would be too risky and easily discovered. So, Jin pulled out a blank notebook he had prepared beforehand. He decided to copy down a portion of the secret text every time he visited. Over the next few days, Jin quietly slipped back and forth between the storm castle and the secret chamber. Until one day, while he was copying down the text, he heard footsteps echoing from behind him. Jin leaped to his feet, filled with anxiety. He thought someone had caught him sneaking in and out of the secret chamber. Just as he cracked the door open to peek outside, a pair of glowing eyes and a massive silhouette appeared right through the gap, freezing Jin in his tracks. "Hey kid, who the heck are you?" Jin was so tense he forgot to breathe. The Black Dragon Murakan had actually awakened. In his past life, he had never heard of Murakan waking up. Caught completely off guard, he had no idea how to react. Despite his absolute terror, Jin forced himself to calm down. Since Murakan was the guardian dragon of the Runcandel clan, Jin figured he might let him off if he showed proper respect and just acted like an innocent child. "The child of Runcandel greets the clan's guardian," Jin said, his voice trembling slightly. In response, he could hear Murakan's teeth grinding with rage. "How dare you call me a guardian? You just called me your clan's guardian. How dare you treat me like some cheap gatekeeper? You damn Runcandel brat, how dare you talk about me like that? And since I can't even vent my anger on a little kid like you, you're driving me absolutely insane." Murakan's booming voice pierced Jin's eardrums. It seemed treating the great black dragon Murakan as some mere gatekeeper was a massive insult to his pride. After throwing a loud, angry tantrum, Murakan was so exhausted that he squatted down and began huffing and puffing. "This is so freaking annoying. Seriously, it's been so long since I smelled something this sweet, and the only thing I find is a mere child." With that, Murakan suddenly got right in Jin's face, making the boy hold his breath. Why do you smell like shadow energy? I may have been asleep for 1,000 years, but I'd never forget this scent. This unique shadow energy should only exist on a contractor like Timar." The Timar that Murakan was referring to was none other than the legendary founder of Jin's clan. Murakan's words struck Jin like a bolt of lightning. Could the real reason this dragon woke up be because of his own shadow energy? Of course, there was no way Murakan would ever believe a mere toddler like Jin could form a contract with Solderet. So, using his ultra-sensitive dragon nose, he began sniffing around the room like a hound, determined to find the source of that dark scent. Jin grew tense. He wasn't sure if he should make a move, since he had no idea how Murakan felt about Solderet's power. But after a moment of hesitation, Jin decided to take a gamble. Lord Murakan, is this what you're looking for? My father told me this power comes from Solderet, the god of shadows." Murakan froze, staring at the sphere of dark energy swirling in Jin's palm, his body beginning to tremble. "Solderet, are you pulling my leg? No way. You're serious? This little brat is the one from our 1,000-year pact?" For a long moment, both Jin and Murakan fell into a heavy silence. After what felt like an eternity, the dragon finally spoke. "Hey kid, yes, Lord Murakan," Jin replied politely. "You see, I made a promise to Solderet, and it looks like you and I are going to have to work together to make it happen." Murakan explained that he would share the details later. Having just woken up from a 1,000-year slumber, his mind was still completely foggy. Besides, he figured Jin was way too young to understand the gravity of the situation anyway. Even so, he knew he had to properly introduce himself to Solderet's new contractor. Slowly rising to his feet, Murakan's body began to shift and change. "I am Murakan, the guardian dragon of Solderet, his close friend, and the last surviving descendant of the primordial shadow. By the terms of our 1,000-year covenant, I shall stand by your side from this day forth." With those words, Murakan's true, majestic form was revealed, right before Jin's eyes. Jin shivered, overwhelmed with emotion. Just a moment ago, he was terrified that Murakan might have been Solderet's mortal enemy. If that were the case, the dragon might have torn him to shreds just for carrying Solderet's power. But to his immense relief, Murakan was a friend, not a foe. His gamble had paid off. "Tell me your name, contractor of Solderet." "Jin Runcandel," Jin replied, finally letting out a sigh of relief and smiling. "I am the 13th child and the youngest son of the Runcandel clan. It is an honor to journey with you, Lord Murakan." The black dragon, Murakan, was a creature of legends. In fact, Mount Murakan, the sacred land of howling winds, was named in his honor. He had ruled over this region since ancient times. However, 1,000 years ago, Murakan was defeated in a duel against Tamar Runcandel. History books claimed that after the Lightning Plaza was completely destroyed in their battle, Murakan fell into a deep hibernation. But now that Jin had actually met Murakan, he realized the historical records weren't entirely accurate. It appeared that those who contracted with the gods, like Timar or himself, were destined to partner up with a guardian dragon. Though there were still many mysteries left to uncover, gaining the black dragon Murakan as his companion was undeniably a massive win for him. The very next day, Jin sneaked back into the secret chamber, bringing a box of food for the dragon. Since they would be spending a lot of time together, Jin decided to start digging for answers to his burning questions. Naturally, his first question was about the legendary clash between Murakan and his ancestor, Timar. Unfortunately, so much time had passed, and Murakan had slept for so long that his brain was completely fried. He couldn't recall a single detail. After trying several times with no luck, Jin could only be sure of one thing about this legendary dragon. He was absolutely obsessed with the strawberry pies Jin brought him. Meanwhile, Murakhan was growing curious about why Jin sneaked into the chamber every day to copy those classified secret tomes. "You actually understand what's written in those?" the dragon asked. "Only about 30% of it," Jin replied. "The rest is completely over my head." Jin let out a heavy sigh, but Murakhan tried to comfort him. "Hey, don't lose hope. For a kid your age, grasping even 30% is a mind-blowing achievement. Other brats wouldn't even try because they're way too lazy." Murakhan reassured him, but the compliment didn't make Jin feel any better. After all, Murakhan was comparing him to normal children, whereas Jin was born into a monstrous clan that ruled over half the continent. He had 12 older siblings to compete with, not to mention his powerful parents and the ruthless elders of the clan. If he wanted to surpass them all, Jin had to push himself to the absolute limit. "Murakhan, when the founder of our clan was my age, how much of these books could he understand?" Jin asked out of the blue, eager to know how he measured up against the man regarded as the strongest human in history. But Murakhan's response took him completely by surprise. "Temar? I don't think that guy could even read a single line of those books when he was your age." Of course, book smarts aren't everything. Murakhan recalled that Tamar barely ever read, yet he was an absolute beast in battle. Then, the dragon bluntly added that while Jin had similar potential, he still fell short of his ancestors' raw talent. Jin's brief spark of hope vanished instantly, replaced by a wave of disappointment. Jin slumped his shoulders in disappointment. "So, I'll never be as great as the founder?" Murakhan stared at him for a long moment, then reached out to pat Jin's head. "No way. You're a contractor of Solderet, just like Timar. Plus, you're easily smart enough to read those secret tomes. You're still just a kid, so don't rush it. Just train as hard as you can, and you'll definitely become as strong as Timar. Heck, you might even surpass him one day." Murakhan wasn't just saying that to cheer him up, he meant every single word. After all, Solderet, the god of darkness who granted Jin his powers, also went by another name, Infinity. His power is limitless. And because of that, anyone who makes a contract with Solderet has limitless potential as well. Of course, in Murakhan's eyes, Jin was still just a child, so it was only natural for him to feel a bit discouraged along the way. So, he decided to teach Jin a cool new trick to cheer him up. How to release the shadow energy dormant inside his body. Murakhan explained, "Any living being capable of manipulating shadow energy has to get used to it first, but it's incredibly dangerous if you don't learn it the right way. So you need to take things slow and get serious." Being a good student, Jin asked, "So, Lord Murakhan, what should I do first?" "You? First, you've got to learn how to unlock your mana." "Why is that?" Jin wondered. He had assumed Solderet's shadow power had absolutely nothing to do with magic, yet here Murakhan was, telling him the very first step was unlocking mana. Besides, in his past life, he had done this more times than he could count. Releasing shadow energy is all about unlocking and channeling your mana. You need to master both of these skills. You'll be practicing this for the next 2 to 3 years. Jin frowned slightly at that. 2 to 3 years? For someone who was absolutely desperate to get strong as quickly as possible, that felt like an eternity. Unaware of Jin's thoughts, Murakhan kept rambling on. "You don't even know the basics yet, so there's no way I can teach you anything advanced. Long story short, your next task is to unlock your mana." But the second those words left his mouth, a glowing sphere of mana manifested right in Jin's palm. He had a completely straight face, as if to say, "This is no big deal, like this, right? So, can you teach me the advanced stuff now?" Murakhan was absolutely flabbergasted. He leaned in close, staring intently at the mana sphere, and bombarded Jin with questions about how on earth he had just done that. Of course, Jin couldn't just blurt out that he had been reincarnated and had already unlocked this power in his past life. So, he just gave a vague, brushed-off answer. But because of that, in Murakhan's eyes, Jin had just become a once-in-a-generation prodigy. Stunned, Murakhan decided it was time to show Jin what releasing shadow energy actually looked like in practice. Jin had successfully baited Murakhan into teaching him how to master shadow energy, so he was secretly thrilled. Despite sleeping for 1,000 years, it seemed Murakhan's raw power hadn't faded one bit. Shadow energy, as the name suggests, originates from the shadows, and all darkness in this world is born from Solderet. To put it another way, Solderet is the absolute master of all darkness. And right now, Jin is the only living person with whom he has a contract. In a way, that made Jin the ruler of all darkness too. As Murakhan explained this, he began to release his own colossal shadow energy. The sheer pressure was overwhelming. but it only made Jin more excited. And just like that, time began to fly. While Jin was busy mastering Solderet's power, his older siblings weren't just sitting around either. Take his eldest sister, Luna, for instance. She was currently on a mission to clear out monsters from a massive region. According to her subordinate knight, Luna's squad only had 5 more sectors to clear before the mission was complete. Then 4 months should be enough, Luna estimated silently, telling her knights to take a break. Then, remembering something, she turned to her subordinate. By the way, what do 9-year-old kids usually like? Half a year after Jin first met Murakhan, the Tona twins were finally old enough to leave the storm castle. Honestly, escaping Jin's clutches made them look incredibly relieved. And with those two finally gone, Jin felt like the place was a whole lot cleaner. Not long after, Gilly and the other servants threw Jin a small celebration for his 9th birthday. Just as they were about to cut the cake, Khan rushed into the room, gasping for breath, to announce that Lady Luna had arrived for a visit. Luna showing up just to wish him a happy 9th birthday took Jin completely by surprise. After all, everyone knew how incredibly busy the eldest child of the Runcandel family, a formidable 9-star knight, usually was. Luna went by the nickname the White Whale, which most likely came from her striking platinum blonde hair. Though she was undisputed as the strongest among all the Runcandel siblings, she had absolutely zero interest in becoming the family patriarch. Because of that, Luna had opted out of the muddy, cutthroat succession war a long time ago. To Jin, his eldest sister really was like a solitary white whale. For that very reason, Luna had never paid any attention to her younger siblings. Her relationship with her 12 younger siblings was best described as distant strangers rather than blood relatives. In his past life, Jin and Luna were no exception to this cold rule. Yet here she was, on his birthday, making the journey all the way to the Storm Castle just for him. Luna arrived at Storm Castle without any warning. At first, Jin thought something major had happened to the clan, or that Luna had caught him sneaking into the family's secret chamber. But when the two siblings stood face to face, the first thing Luna said was, "You've really grown, kiddo. If I'd known you were coming, I would have dressed up a bit more," Jin replied. "How cute," Luna said, stepping forward to ruffle Jin's hair. "Do I really need to give warning before visiting my youngest brother?" Luna's warm actions and words were so unlike her usual cold demeanor, leaving Jin completely stunned. Seeing his stunned expression, his older sister mistakenly thought he was feeling under the weather. "Why do you look so exhausted? Are you sick?" "Oh no," Jin quickly shook his head. "Actually, I'm just a bit nervous. This is the first time I've been this close to you, so I guess I'm feeling a little anxious." This time, it was Luna who froze. In the Runcandel family, siblings were raised to constantly guard against, suspect, and even trample over one another. So, it was only natural for Jin to think she was here to evaluate him and to feel anxious because of it. A wave of sadness washed over Luna. She clenched her fists, and after a long silence, she finally spoke. "Yeah, it seems I wasn't being very considerate. You might still be small, but I forgot that you, too, are a child of the Runcandel family." With that, Luna suddenly dropped to one knee, leveling her gaze with Jin's, and said she had something to tell him in private. Jin got the hint and immediately dismissed the guards, the maids, and even Gilly. Although he had no idea why Luna was acting so out of character, it didn't seem like anything bad. Once they were alone in the room, Luna's expression turned serious. She explained that the last time Chiron Runcandel visited his youngest son, Jin's performance had drawn the attention of all his other siblings. This meant that in 1 year, when Jin was old enough to leave Storm Castle, he would immediately become a target for his older siblings. "Kiddo," Luna said, her voice filled with deep earnestness, "I hope you won't lose your own happiness by getting dragged into the family's power struggle. I truly hope you won't be broken by this Runcandel tradition." Hearing Luna's words, Jin was temporarily at a loss for words. Was the reason she had given up the position of patriarch really that simple? And if she truly didn't want him caught up in their siblings' rivalry, why hadn't she warned him even once in his past life? Was it because he wasn't even worth talking to back then? Or because the others never saw him as a rival to begin with? But whatever the reason, Jin could feel Luna's absolute sincerity as she knelt right in front of him. Jin reached out and gently patted Luna's hands, which were tightly holding onto his. "Sister Luna, I really appreciate what you're saying, but I have absolutely no intention of staying out of this fight. Jin, I'm serious. I'm not saying this because I think you'll have to face me as an enemy. I know, sister, but I've already survived 1 assassination attempt. That's why there's no way for me to avoid this muddy swamp." In reality, The assassination attempt Jin was referring to was the blade illusion curse, which had already been broken in his past life. Hearing this, Luna's eyes widened in utter shock, which quickly twisted into pure rage. Jin could even feel a suffocating wave of bloodlust radiating from his older sister. Who was it? Who would dare try to take your life right here inside Storm Castle? Tell me, Jin. Who wanted you dead? You see, Storm Castle was meant to protect Runcandel children, keeping them safe from being eliminated too early in the brutal struggle for the Patriarch's throne. So, hearing her younger brother, who had never even set foot outside of Storm Castle, say he was targeted for assassination, naturally made Luna boil with rage. To be fair, I haven't been able to figure out who it was yet, but I'm completely fine, sister, Jin said, trying to comfort her. Besides, not all of my siblings hate me. You're proof of that, aren't you? Thank you for letting me know how you feel. I'm happy from the bottom of my heart. Seeing a 9-year-old child speak with the maturity of a grown adult only made Luna's heart ache even more. She didn't know what else to say, so she just pulled Jin into a tight embrace, gently stroking his head. This was the first time Jin realized Luna could be such a warm and caring person, so he hugged her back tightly, soaking in this rare moment of family warmth. All right, today is a happy day. We shouldn't be talking about such gloomy things. As she pulled away, Luna took a small box out from inside her robe. She explained that her main reason for visiting today was actually to give Jin a gift. Inside the box was a necklace featuring a deep blue stone, but it was no ordinary gem. Luna instructed him, "Whenever you run into a problem you can't handle alone, just smash the blue gem on this necklace and I'll immediately come to your side. So, make sure you keep it with you at all times." Luna helped Jin put it around his neck, whispering gently, "Happy 9th birthday, my little brother." Soon after, Gilly brought in some cake. The two siblings sat together, eating and chatting just like any normal brother and sister. After a while, Luna reluctantly said her goodbyes. That very night, Jin headed right back to the family's secret chamber. The moment Murakhan laid eyes on Jin, he shrung ang alo, along alo, Alan, Islan, Alan. Genjin calmly replied, "Oh, this? It is my birthday present. Whoever gave you that must really cherish you to hand over something like this." Murakhan pointed at the gem, his hands shaking with sheer excitement. Noticing his bizarre reaction, Jin pressed him for answers. That was when he learned this blue gem was actually a relic of the Demon King, Orgel. Over 1,000 years ago, countless people risked their lives just to get their hands on a single one of his relics. This miraculous item grants the wearer complete immunity against any magic attacks of 5-star rank or lower, while also boosting their magical power and even offering summoning capabilities. Murakhan knew all of this because he had actually lived during the same era as Orgel. "This must have been given to you by someone with an insanely powerful aura, right?" Murakhan asked. "Yeah, my eldest sister just dropped by." "Wait, you could actually sense her energy from all the way down here?" Jin handed the birthday cake to Murakhan and asked with a look of pure shock. "Exactly. And honestly, she probably sensed me, too." His words made Jin incredibly anxious. He was terrified that Luna would report this back to the clan, but Murakhan assured him he was worrying over nothing. After all, someone generous enough to gift him a relic of the demon, King Orgel would never snitch and leave him to be torn apart by the family. Jin had to admit that his logic made a lot of sense. Murakhan even added that out of all his siblings, Jin could absolutely trust Luna. Just as Murakhan predicted, Luna had indeed sensed an unprecedented source of energy back when she was at the Storm Castle. She figured her youngest brother was plotting something big, but she decided it was best to just play dumb and pretend she knew nothing. On that very day, Luna made a firm decision. No matter what Jin did or what he became, in this upcoming family war, she would always side with her baby brother. Another year flew by in the blink of an eye. The time at the Storm Castle, which Jin once feared would be incredibly dull, had actually brought him so much. He gained the recognition and high expectations from Khan, the Phoenix Heart brought to him by Mary, a close bond with Luna, and even his encounter with the legendary shadow dragon, Murakhan. These were things he could not have even dreamed of in his past life. But now, he was preparing to leave the Storm Castle and return to the main family residence. During his training sessions with Khan, Jin was always incredibly diligent and focused. After a few of these sessions, Khan finally understood why the Patriarch favored him the most out of all 13 children. Even though Khan was supposed to be the one evaluating Jin during their practice, Jin's sharp gaze made it feel as if he was the one evaluating Khan's teaching abilities instead. Because of that, when today's lesson came to an end, Khan did something he had never done for any other young master before. Young Master Jin, teaching you has been the greatest honor of my life. You will be leaving the Storm Castle very soon, but I promise to do my absolute best to teach you until the very last second. As he spoke these words, Khan bowed deeply with profound respect. All right, I will be in your care until then. Some more time passed, and tomorrow was finally the day Jin would leave the Storm Castle. Today, while Gilly was busy packing their bags, he sat there playing with a candle flame. Even when he held his fingers directly over the burning flame, Jin felt absolutely no heat at all. It looked like Mary's gift was finally kicking in. He figured he had absorbed about half of the Phoenix Heart's power and would fully integrate the rest over the next few years. While she was packing, Gilly mentioned she was going to whip up some strawberry pie for Jin's snack. This suddenly reminded him of Murakhan, who was still hiding in the storage room. Even though it was already late at night, Jin made up an excuse to go for a quick walk and ran straight to him. Jin had actually already mentioned to Murakhan that he would be leaving the Storm Castle soon, and it seemed the dragon was just as excited for this day to come. How exactly do you plan on following me? The second Jin asked. Murakhan immediately began showing off like a proud peacock. Come on, don't make such a big deal out of it. I am the legendary Black Dragon. Even if I have gotten a bit weaker, this is child's play for me. I guarantee I can follow you without a single soul noticing. Wait a second, did you say you got weaker? Why didn't you tell me something so important? After spending so much time together, Jin was finally comfortable talking back to Murakhan instead of bowing and calling him Lord. You brat, how could I possibly be at 100% after sleeping for 1,000 years? Fortunately, Murakhan mentioned that his strength could still be recovered, and as for Jin, he would eventually grow even stronger than the dragon since Murakhan was his guardian beast. So hurry up and become a magic swordsman as legendary as Temar, Murakhan added. Come to think of it, Murakhan had mentioned before that the Runcandels were originally a clan of magic swordsmen, unlike the pure swordsmen they were today. Jin had also heard Solderet briefly mention this in his past life. His family's true roots lay in magic swordsmanship, and the first patriarch, Tamar Runcandel, was the most powerful magic swordsman in history. Today, almost no one knew this truth anymore. Murakhan also explained that the reason the Runcandel clan abandoned magic to pursue the absolute pinnacle of pure swordsmanship was all because of a solemn oath sworn 1,000 years ago. Well, even if they consider me the clan's guardian dragon, I'm pretty sure they'd be incredibly annoyed if I actually showed up. Murakhan began to reminisce, saying, if this were 1,000 years ago, you and I would have been absolutely worshipped just for bringing the most noble being in the world into existence. Watching Murakhan ramble on and on, it was clear that Jin was the only one actually worrying about them leaving the Storm Castle together. The dragon had even planned to use his draconian magic to create an illusion, making it look like he was still fast asleep inside that giant glass jar for anyone who might drop by. What if your illusion gets discovered? Jin asked. He just wanted to be absolutely sure, but his question seemed to have wounded the pride of this overly sensitive dragon. Hey, I'm the great black dragon, you know? A simple illusion is child's play for me, so quit worrying. Since Murakhan hadn't fully recovered his strength yet, he wasn't entirely sure how long the illusion would last, but he promised to maintain it as long as he possibly could. That way, even if someone eventually realized he was gone from the chamber, they wouldn't suspect Jin had anything to do with it. Hearing that, Jin finally felt a bit relieved. With their business concluded, he pulled out a box of strawberry pies, Murakhan's absolute favorite, along with a bottle of homemade strawberry wine he'd brewed himself. Murakhan's eyes lit up instantly. What do we have here, kid? I knew raising you would pay off eventually. Early the next morning, Gilly carefully wrapped Jin in a warm coat and led him toward the castle gates. Over the past few years, Gilly had witnessed firsthand just how tirelessly Jin had trained there. Still, life at the main castle would be infinitely harsher and more chaotic, so she couldn't help but worry. Gilly, don't worry. I'll do my absolute best at the main castle, Jin reassured her. Understood, young master. I will also dedicate everything to supporting you. Just as they finished speaking, their escort arrived. Guardian Knights Jerome and Holtz were tasked with safely escorting Jin back to the main castle, the Garden of Swords. And so, on October 30th, 1790, Jin finally departed the Storm Castle for the main territory of the Runcandel clan, officially stepping onto the blood-soaked stage of the clan's civil war. Not long after the carriage departed, a heavy blizzard began to fall. Gilly noted that the roads would soon be blocked by snow, meaning they had to stop at a nearby village and wait it out. If the snow piled up too high, using the teleportation gate would be out of the question. Right at that moment, the carriage shook violently. Jerome and Holtz shouted that they were under ambush, urging them to stay inside. Gilly immediately pulled Jin into a tight embrace to comfort him. "Young master, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Jerome and Holtz are 7-star knights, and you have me too." Based on her observations, Gilly estimated there were about 20 attackers, likely a mix of magicians and warriors. There were probably some archers too, and it was highly unlikely that any of them exceeded 7-star strength. But as Jin looked through the carriage window and saw both of those guardian knights fully engaged in the fight, his expression suddenly darkened. "Gilly, we need to leave, now." Gilly didn't quite understand Jin's sudden shift in attitude, but Jin had already noticed something deeply unsettling. No matter the circumstances, a guardian of the Runcandel clan was never allowed to abandon their post protecting Runcandel blood. No matter how many enemies there were, at least one of those two knights should have remained by Jin's side. Yet, both of them had rushed headfirst into the fray, which meant either one of them was a traitor, they were imposters, or worst-case scenario, neither was on their side. There must be weapons hidden in this carriage. "Gilly, we have to get out." Seeing the sheer gravity on Jin's face, Gilly knew she couldn't afford to hesitate. She might look like a gentle nanny, but she was, in fact, a formidable warrior. In a crisis like this, Gilly was prepared to put her life on the line to protect her young master. 2 wolf-claw weapons slid out of her sleeves as her gentle demeanor instantly vanished, replaced by cold resolve. "I will protect you with my life, as a member of the McLaurin family. Forgive me if I overstep, young master." With that, Gilly used her claws to tear open the carriage roof, scooping up Jin as they leaped out. They bolted through the raging blizzard, but after a short distance, Jin stopped her, saying he wanted to go back and check on the ambush site. After all, the so-called enemies might actually be their true allies. If they were really out to assassinate him, they should have attacked the moment the two of them escaped the carriage. Instead, the area had fallen into an eerie silence. Gilly nodded in understanding and quickly escorted him back to the scene. There, a one-eyed man was frantically barking orders. "Hurry up and find Jin Runcandel. Team 3, block the left flank." As they drew closer, Jin and Gilly spotted the leaf and spade insignias on the gear and cloaks of the fighters. They belonged to the Yuta Magic Clan and the Black King mercenaries. "Over there, we found Gilly McLaurin. Jin Runcandel is with her." The one-eyed man leaped down from a high ledge, landing right in front of them. He was Mirka, the vice-captain of the Black King mercenaries, sent under the Runcandel clan's orders to rescue the young master. Meanwhile, the true, sinister identity of those claiming to be Jerome and Holtz was finally laid bare. If they were actually 7-star guardian knights of the Runcandel family, there was no way they would be struggling so much against these guys. "Who on earth are you? What is your goal?" Gilly shouted. That guy Jerome burst into a hearty laugh. "What a stupid question. Who would waste their time answering to Runcandel dogs like you?" Even though Mirka and his comrades would definitely get the situation under control, since Jin, their master, was present, his opinion mattered most. Jin showed no mercy whatsoever. He ordered Gilly to kill one of them to clear some space, and to chop off the other's hands and bring him forward. Gilly looked as if she had just flipped her battle switch. Charging at Jerome like an emissary from hell, she took him down in just 2 simple moves. The other guy, Holtz, paled with sheer terror when he saw that even a mere nanny of the Runcandel family was. Before he could even react, Gilly mercilessly sliced off both his hands. Losing both hands made Holtz lose his balance, and he immediately collapsed backward into the snow. Gilly grabbed him by his hair and dragged him over to Jin. "Your master seems to have seriously underestimated his opponent. To even become a servant of the Runcandel family, you need to be at least a 7-star. Jin sneered. "So, if you want to try and assassinate a Runcandel child next time, at least reach the 8-star level. Okay? Cut the crap. This is just the beginning. The downfall of your Runcandel family is coming," Holtz shrieked in absolute fury. Honestly, I'd like to see that too. I'm not really fond of the term Runcandel Empire anyway. I only care for the Jin Runcandel Empire." As he uttered those words, his eyes turned incredibly cold and vicious, sending a shiver right down Mirka's spine. But Holtz didn't seem to fear death at all, so he kept talking trash. "You bastard, bow down before Zipfel." Of course, Jin was all too familiar with the name Zipfel. They were the legendary mage clan ruling the other half of the world. While the Runcandel family was famous for their supreme swordsmanship, the Zipfel clan was known for reaching the very pinnacle of magic. 1,000 years ago, after Timar Runcandel passed away, Zipfel forced the Runcandel family into a humiliating oath, demanding they completely strip magic from their family's power. And just like that, magic within the Runcandel family was sealed. For the Runcandels, the Zipfel clan was a 1,000-year enemy, and the feeling was entirely mutual. No wonder Jin had been wondering why anyone would dare to act so recklessly against him. Turns out, they were just fanatic followers of the Zipfel clan. If that was the case, interrogating him would be completely useless. Jin then ordered Gilly to dump him somewhere and leave him to fend for himself. Of course, seeing Runcandel as their mortal enemy, the Zipfel clan had always plotted to terrorize them. However, this particular incident likely wasn't orchestrated by the Zipfel family directly, but rather a reckless move by their fanatic followers. Still, Jin couldn't help but find it strange. No matter how well these rats disguised themselves, there was no way they should have easily fooled a 7-star knight like Gilly. This made him suspect that someone else was definitely pulling the strings. Meanwhile, Gilly finished her task and returned in no time. Jin then turned his attention to Mirka. He had managed to escape successfully this time because Mirka and his men had drawn the two imposters' attention away from him. Because of this, Jin promised that once they returned to the Runcandel castle, he would report their achievements so they could be properly rewarded. All right, now help me set up the teleportation gate. Yes, I will do my absolute best, young master, Mirka stammered. He truly couldn't believe that everything that had just unfolded was orchestrated by a mere 10-year-old child. Jin was far too confident and mature for his age. What's more, even after going through such a chaotic ordeal, he remained completely calm, acting as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Mirka unconsciously recalled Jin's words from earlier about building the Jin Runcandel empire. He couldn't help but shudder, realizing those weren't empty words. The boy was actually dead serious about making it happen. Well, it was their family's business anyway. Mirka could only sigh, instructing his subordinates to be absolutely careful with every move they made and not to do anything foolish until the teleportation gate was fully set up. What? Captain, that's such a ridiculous request. Since when do we have to worry about stuff like this? The members of the Black King mercenaries were thoroughly confused. Just shut up and do what I say, Mirka snapped, internally criticizing their short-sightedness. It seemed they didn't realize just how terrifying that 10-year-old child actually was. By this time, Gilly had finished fixing Jin's clothes. Since the carriage was broken, the group could only travel on foot to the nearest village. A few of them were a bit concerned about Jerome and Holtz, but Jin told them not to worry. Whether they're found alive or dead, it will still serve as a warning to their accomplices. As the snow began to fall more heavily, Mirka's group mentioned it would take about 2 more hours to reach a village. But Jin didn't complain or whine at all. He only noticed Gilly's gloomy expression, so he had to comfort her. Don't dwell on what happened during the escort, Gilly. It wasn't your fault. Even a 9-star knight like Khan back at Storm Castle didn't notice anything. It's only natural that a 7-star warrior like you would have a hard time spotting anything unusual. Gilly probably knew that, but she still couldn't stop blaming herself and apologizing to Jin. She's just like she was in her past life. As the nanny of the Runcandel family, Gilly's fate was tied directly to the child she raised. In Jin's past life, Gilly was his nanny too, and because he had no talent back then, she ended up being despised and humiliated right along with him. But Gilly never once resented or looked down on Jin, and when he was finally banished from the Runcandel clan, she was kicked out of the castle too. Yet all she did was cry and keep telling him, "Young master, I am so sorry for not taking better care of you." Jin could still clearly picture her, bowing her head and sobbing in the freezing snow. He hated raising his voice at the one person who had always been good to him, but things were different now. Gilly needed to steel her resolve for what was to come. Gentle reassurance wasn't working, so Jin had no choice but to raise his voice to snap her out of it. "Stop blaming yourself, that's an order. Gilly, as long as you're my nanny, you're the only guardian knight I need. If you let trivial things get to you like this, how are you going to protect me in the future? So don't make me repeat myself. Do you understand?" Jin's firm and decisive words snapped Gilly out of her daze. She quickly composed herself and kept walking forward by his side. More than anyone, Gilly knew how much Jin cared for her, and she understood that his harsh words were only meant to help her. She wanted nothing more than to protect him, which was exactly why she had been beating herself up so much. But after getting that reality check, Gilly finally pulled herself together, which brought a wave of relief to Jin. After a long trek, they finally arrived at a village. Mirka found an inn and rented a room for Jin to rest. But Jin's mind was still racing, thinking about what had just happened. If Jin's hunch was correct, there was a high chance that he was behind this, the transformation magician, Bouvard Gaston. Transformation was a specialty of the dragon race, but even they couldn't pull off a flawless disguise. Only Bouvard was capable of a truly perfect transformation. He used that ability to disguise himself and commit all sorts of crimes, throwing the world into utter chaos. Jin hoped his guess was wrong, because if Bouvard really was involved in this, things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. In his past life, when Jin had just turned 20, the Special Task Force of Vermont finally captured Bouvard. If he could somehow recruit the guy as an ally right now, it would be incredibly useful. But Jin had absolutely no reason to team up with someone who had pointed a sword at him in his past life. So, before he could cause any more trouble, Jin knew he had to investigate. But as those thoughts swirled in his mind, his eyelids suddenly grew heavy, and everything went blank. By the time Gilly took off her outer coat and said she was heading out to stand guard, Jin had already crashed and was fast asleep. After all, his body was still that of a 10-year-old child, and today's events had left him completely exhausted. The next morning, Jin was woken up by a cat meowing loudly outside his window. He sleepily opened his eyes to see a black cat posing and squirming right behind the glass. That ridiculous behavior immediately reminded Jin of a certain someone. After all, Murakhan had promised he would stay hidden and follow him everywhere. You said you'd stay hidden and follow me? You meant turning yourself into a cat like this? Jin tried his best to hold back his laughter, while Murakhan outside was practically burning with rage. Once he got all the giggles out of his system, Jin finally opened the window to let him in. Don't be mad. I was just surprised. I really didn't expect you to show up looking like this. I figured you'd disguise yourself as one of my servants, like a stable boy or something. Hey, if I did that, every single knight in your family would have their eyes on me, Murakhan hissed, grinding his teeth before transforming back into his human form. But right after that, because he wasn't paying attention, Murakhan tripped on an uneven floorboard and clumsily slammed face first into the windowsill. Hearing the loud thud, Gilly immediately went on high alert and burst into the room. The silly black dragon didn't even have time to run or transform back into a cat, leaving him completely exposed right in front of her. Who are you, and how dare you stalk my young master? Gilly instantly went into full demon mama mode. She aggressively lunged forward, pinning Murakhan to the floor and demanding answers. Tell me who you are right now before I end you. Gilly, wait, Jin scrambled over, but he hadn't even come up with a good cover story for Murakhan yet. But the moment Murakhan heard her name, he bolted upright. Gilly? You're Gilly? Oh, my precious strawberry pie, I finally get to meet you. As it turned out, this 1,000-year-old black dragon had a surprisingly cute obsession with strawberry pie. Over the past 2 years of knowing him, Jin had brought him countless pies, constantly boasting that they were made by his nanny, Gilly. Ever since then, Murakhan had been dying to meet her in person. In this situation, Jin could only facepalm and sigh. Oh man, things are getting totally out of hand. Jin pointed toward Murakhan, whose hair was a messy nest as he stood with his arms crossed, smiling smugly. First of all, this is the guardian deity of the Runcandel clan, the black dragon, Murakhan. Then he turned and gestured toward the completely flustered Gilly. And this is... But before Jin could even finish, Murakhan eagerly cut him off. I already know who she is. She's my precious strawberry pie, right? Terrified, Gilly bowed deeply, apologizing over and over. This humble servant of the Runcandel family begs forgiveness for being so disrespectful to the guardian deity. Please, forgive me. But Murakhan just spread his arms and laughed, saying shamelessly, Don't worry, my little strawberry pie. I'd gladly forgive you any day. Gilly raised her hand in utter confusion and asked, Lord Murakhan, may I ask why exactly you're calling me strawberry pie? He proudly replied, Because you're amazing, beautiful, and you make the absolute perfect strawberry pie. Gilly put 2 and 2 together and whipped her head around to glare at Jin. So, is he the real reason you've been asking for strawberry pie every single day, young master? Jin quickly looked away, trying to hide his smirk. As the bright sunlight streamed through the window, Jin gently requested, Could you sit down for a moment? Let me explain everything. The two of them sat down properly, while Murakhan lazily lounged on his side. Gilly covered her mouth in shock. There's so much I didn't know about you, young master. Jin said apologetically, I'm really sorry for lying to you. But Gilly wasn't upset at all, unlike what Jin had feared. No. I've always known your talents were extraordinary, young master. Still, she looked back and forth between the two in utter confusion, one an adult, and the other just a kid. First it was magic, then being Solderet's contractor, and now, a whole dragon? Murakhan smirked playfully, conjuring a tiny shadow dragon on his fingertip with a flick. Joyful vibes filled the air as she clasped her hands together with pure enthusiasm. As your servant, I'm just incredibly shocked and so happy for you. She then listened intently as Jin gave his instructions. Either way, you're on our side now. The clan must never find out that Murakhan has awakened, or about my connection with him at least. Not for now. Got it? Gilly replied immediately. Yes, young master, I understand perfectly. Murakhan suddenly jumped up, rudely blocking Jin's view as he grinned widely. There's nothing to worry about. Strawberry pie. After all, I'll always be by the kid's side. She quickly expressed her gratitude. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Murakhan. Gilly suddenly remembered the loud crash from earlier when he slammed into the wall. By the way, is everything all right after that loud noise right before you transformed? Jin immediately shoved his hand right into Murakhan's face. You really need to be more careful, he grumbled. Stop lecturing me. Looking at the completely shattered wooden frame, he reluctantly confessed, I, tripped. He didn't even look embarrassed as he threw his head back and laughed. Gilly's face went pale with worry, and she whispered, Young master, are you absolutely sure he's reliable? Jin couldn't say for sure either. I hope so. Shifting to the Mytel teleportation gate, Murakhan had transformed into a black cat, perched snugly on Jin's shoulder. Meanwhile, Gilly was speaking to Mirka. Thank you for a job well done, Black King mercenaries. Mirka, however, was staring intently at the black cat. Murakhan, was that thing there before? Gilly ignored his gaze and continued. The Runcandel clan will surely reward your efforts handsomely. He stood up straight before Gilly and replied, This mission was a valuable experience for us as well. Mirka looked down at Jin and the wide-eyed black cat sitting on his shoulder. I'm truly excited to see what the future holds for the young master you're raising. Suddenly, his tone shifted as he changed the subject. But I do have one question for you. Gilly was startled. Yes? Mirka gestured with his hand and asked in a serious tone, With a remarkable talent like yours, why did you choose to leave the McRollan clan just to become a nanny for a Runcandel child? Gilly turned away coldly. There is nothing more to discuss. Realizing he had overstepped, Mirka awkwardly scratched his head. Apologies. That was out of line. She replied calmly, It's fine. Gilly then signaled the soldiers behind them, and together they made their way inside the building. The gatekeeper greeted them mechanically. Welcome to the teleportation gate. May I see your documents? Gilly unwrapped a cloth to reveal the Runcandel sword crest, heading toward Karlon of the Hufester Alliance. The gatekeeper immediately recognized it and bowed deeply. Ah, guests from the esteemed Runcandel clan. Gilly quickly wrapped the crest back up in the cloth. The gatekeeper gestured to lead the way. It is an honor to have you. Please follow me. We will arrange a premium waiting room for you. Murakhan sat quietly on Jin's shoulder. They walked ahead as the staff member added, We will activate the gate in a flash, but you will need to wait here for about 2 hours. Have a safe trip. The two of them sat down, and the cat quickly leaped onto the cushions. Gilly suddenly called out, and young Master Jin looked up, bewildered. Murakhan was already curled up on Gilly's lap, sleeping like a baby. She furrowed her brows in concern. To be honest, as your servant, I'm terrified of what will happen if Murakhan is exposed. We wouldn't be able to handle the fallout. Jin knew immediately she was referring to his magic. Gilly's voice was filled with deep anxiety. Of course, no one in the Runcandel clan can ever find out about that. Jin smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, I know what's at stake, so I'll keep it hidden. Suddenly, the two of them and the cat glanced back in surprise. Jin narrowed his eyes, noticing a crest on a green uniform that had caught their attention. Jin, that is the yellow dragon crest. Veridin, with his snow-white hair, suddenly stepped into view. He strutted in, flanked by giant, imposing bodyguards. He watched as Veridin Zippel plopped down on the seat right in front of them. Jin and Gilly could only stare in silence. Jin covered half his face with a book to observe. Who was that? He looked so familiar. Veridin rested his hand on his chin, speaking in an annoyed voice. I really don't feel like going to Mytel today. His next words made her scowl in annoyance, while he managed to keep his cool. I didn't expect to see such annoying pests here. But before anyone could react, Murakhan leaped off the seat. The cat walked over and sat obediently beneath his chair, making Veridin exclaim, Your cat is pretty cute. He grinned, waving at Murakhan. Come here, aren't you a good boy? It sauntered over. Suddenly, Murakhan's attitude turned ferocious as he scratched Veridin's hand. The bodyguards gasped in panic. Young master, you little brat of a cat. Surprisingly, he did not get angry, but instead gently calmed down his two bodyguards, who were already drawing their swords. Hey, it is fine. It is just an animal. I must have scared it. Besides, drawing your swords in front of a Runcandel won't do you any good. Veridine looked back over with curiosity. Seeing that the other two did not have any intense reaction, he was quite surprised. I was just curious, and wanted to mess with them a bit. But I didn't expect absolutely no reaction. I guess the youngest son of the Runcandel family is pretty calm. Murakan turned and lazily plopped himself onto Jin's lap. He stood up, resting his hands on his hips as he introduced himself. I am Veridin Zippel. I would like to apologize for my rudeness earlier. He silently observed Veridin Zippel. In Jin's memory, this man was a towering, majestic figure who basked in everyone's praise. A genius magician, the one most likely to inherit the Zippel clan, a role model for young mages who possessed both skill and class. But right now, he was just a kid, smiling and reaching his hand out to him. I used to think he would leave me in the dust when it came to magic. Even though Jin had not taken his hand yet, Veridin's smile did not fade. He thought to himself, so that is how it was back then. I never expected to meet him when we were the same age. This is actually a pretty nice feeling. Jin closed his book and reached down to pet the cat, completely ignoring his offered hand. I was also wondering what kind of person you were. It is good to know you are not a total idiot. Veridine asked awkwardly, is that how you view me? Although Jin was smiling, his words were dripping with menace. Even if you were just joking, if those guys had drawn their swords, you would have ended up wandering around my tel without any bodyguards, and you might have lost a few fingers. Veridin laughed as he waved his right hand, which had been hanging awkwardly in the air this whole time. Wow, even your jokes are violent. Jin's blue eyes flashed with cruelty as he growled. Do you think I am joking? Veridin felt a chill, but tried to force a laugh. All right, let me give you some advice. He spoke in a placating tone. If you ever meet another Zippel or find yourself in a similar situation, don't make a rash decision to chop off their fingers. Otherwise, it will just end up causing pain for both of our families. Jin smirked sarcastically. Good joke, Veridin. His calm response caught the other boy completely off guard. My father, Chiron Runcandel, and your father, Keliak Zippel, do you really think they would meddle in a kid's fight? Veridin's eyes widened in sheer shock. Veridin crossed his arms and burst into hearty laughter. You are right. They would probably just settle it with some gold coins or something. Hey, I just learned something from you. I will repay this debt whenever I can. Jin's expression went deadpan as he demanded, don't wait, pay me back right now. He eagerly leaned in and asked, of course, what do you need? But Jin's cold request left Veridin completely frozen. I would be very grateful if you could just be quiet until the teleportation gate is active and stop disturbing my rest. Despite the silence, he was practically vibrating with energy, pulling all sorts of faces. Jin, this guy, he is probably going to become incredibly strong in a few years, huh? Veridin sat flat on the floor, resting his face on the table while staring at Jin with sparkling eyes. If it were not for his family, I would definitely make him my friend. His bodyguard cringed in embarrassment and had to remind him, young master, your image. But Veridin only grew more thrilled as a realization hit him. Wait a second, if he is a Runcandel, doesn't that mean he might become my fated arch-rival? I am so awesome. His bodyguard pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. Young master, please. Jin felt utterly helpless under Veridin's starry-eyed, longing gaze. What a pain. His finger is probably seriously injured, yet he is still acting like this. Is there something wrong with the Zippel clan? They are all completely insane. An announcement over the speaker suddenly cut through the bizarre atmosphere. Thank you for your patience. Glowing runes began to light up on the ceiling gate. A surge of powerful magic manifested in a diamond shape as a cold voice announced, the teleportation gate will now temporarily open. Passengers may experience headaches or dizziness as side effects. Please proceed 2 at a time and sit properly as you wait to enter the gate. A blue magical aura gradually enveloped them. He suddenly bolted upright and called out, Jin Runcandel. Even as his figure began to fade, Veridin eagerly promised, it was great meeting you. See you next time. Jin coldly rejected him and turned his head away. I would rather not. Let us never meet again. A towering castle and a flag bearing the Runcandel crest came into view. The carriage rolled on continuously. Gilly stood formally by his side. The moment Jin stepped down from the carriage, a warm greeting echoed out, We've been waiting for you, young master. Pedro bowed respectfully. This is the first time I have had the honor of welcoming you. I am the second butler, Pedro. Behind him, Knights in iron armor stood in neat, straight rows. Sharp swords of all shapes and sizes were driven deep into the ground in the middle of the castle grounds. Pedro politely added, "It must have been a tough journey getting here." A magnificent, grand mansion glowed brilliantly under the sunlight. "I sincerely welcome you to the main Runcandel estate." The gleaming golden swords instantly caught Jin's attention. Pedro introduced the area to them, calling it the Garden of Swords. 1, 2. Pedro explained that the Garden of Swords was where those who dedicated their lives to the prosperity of Runcandel received the ultimate honor of planting their swords. 1. The hilts of these swords were all exquisitely engraved. In other words, this place was the ultimate symbol of dreams and honor for every member of the Runcandel family. 1. Together, they walked through the Garden of Swords, heading deeper into the mansion. Jin thought to himself that planting his own sword here before he died had once been his dream too. 1. Memories of his past self, helplessly kneeling in weakness, flashed through his mind. 1. His past self was frail, with absolutely no talent. 1. Back then, he lacked leadership and wisdom. 1. How could he have been foolish enough to think that simple effort alone could change his fate? Jin looked up, his clear eyes filled with determination. This time, in this sacred place, he would live a life that actually meant something. The windows, emblazoned with the Runcandel family crest, stood out clearly under the warm, golden sunlight. As Jin and Gilly arrived, he calmly looked up at the people standing on the stairs. The Black Panther, Rosa, the matriarch of the Runcandel family, took the initiative to greet him. "It has been a long time, my youngest." He replied politely, "Yes, mother." Rosa was slightly surprised, while the cat's copper-golden eyes widened. Chiron narrowed his eyes, staring thoughtfully at Murakhan. He asked Jin, "Did you pick up a stray animal?" He reached out to scratch the black cat's chin, making it look visibly pleased, and then politely replied, "I took it in, father." Chiron quickly picked up on the subtle choice of words. "So instead of picking it up, you took it in." Rosa looked over in surprise. He praised him. "It is good that you speak with such poise." Indeed, when a Runcandel acquires something, that is the proper way to put it. Suddenly, Murakhan jumped right off Jin's shoulder, startling him. Rosa leaned down, gently stroking the cat, and asked, "Son, what is this little one's name?" Jin gave the fake name he had prepared for Murakhan in his cat form. "Its name is Butterfly Runcandel, mother." Rosa was a bit surprised to hear this name, but unlike her, the other siblings immediately reacted with outrage. Dipus shouted angrily, "What? Father? Mother? Even if he is still a child, this is unacceptable. How dare he give the Runcandel name to a mere beast?" He then turned his anger on Gilly, blaming her. "Gilly, how on earth have you been raising our youngest? How can a cat bear our name?" Gilly could only bow her head and apologize. "I am terribly sorry." Chiron spoke up, commanding, "That is enough." He looked down at Jin and asked, "Why did you give this cat the Runcandel name, youngest?" Jin respectfully placed his hand over his chest and replied firmly, "Because that way, I will take full responsibility for it." He calmly explained, "It may be just an animal, but it is the first life I have taken in, so I believed its name should hold some weight." Chiron was caught off guard by this remarkable answer. "But youngest, do you truly understand the weight that the Runcandel name carries?" Jin picked the cat up, holding it securely in his arms, his posture and voice showing unwavering resolve. "I understand completely. If anyone insults Butterfly, I will make them pay." Gently tapping his cane, Chiron said, "Youngest, it seems you have a knack for making friends." Then, Chiron turned to look at the sour expressions of his other children and remarked, "Look at how your siblings are staring at you." Even so, Jin calmly hugged Murakhan and confidently shot back. "Perhaps. However, I also have a talent for crushing my enemies, father." Chiron let out a satisfied laugh, flashing his teeth, with a subtle warning. "All of you had better watch your backs if you plan on dealing with this cheeky youngest of yours." With that, Chiron turned and walked away. Time flew by, and 4 years later, in the early summer of 1794, a voice echoed across the massive courtyard of the mansion, calling out to the young master. Jin had now grown into a tall young man, Jin Runcandel, 14 years old, a 2-star knight and a low-ranking cadet. Garen walked up to announce, "We will wrap up your training session here, youngest master. Great work today." Jin asked thoughtfully, "Are we only training in the morning?" Putting his hands on his hips, Garen laughed and said, "Doesn't Lady Luna have a training plan for you today? You might have forgotten, but this is Garen Altermia, a Runcandel guardian cadet and low-ranking instructor." Jin reluctantly complied, putting his wooden practice sword back on the rack. Right, you're correct. I'll go grab something to eat. Garen sighed and asked, Are you planning to eat with the other cadets again today? Lady Rosa seems quite disappointed about that. Jin sighed, giving a weary smile. It is fine. I just don't want to get into a staring contest with my siblings while trying to enjoy my meal. Garen obliged. Understood. I will pass that along to her. Meanwhile, the other cadets were already lined up with their trays, picking up a variety of dishes from the counter. Suddenly, someone spoke up, catching Jin off guard and making him look over. Young master, I brought some food for you. He politely replied, Thank you, Bellup. With a bright smile, he handed the food to Jin. You are very welcome, young master. This was Bellup Smith, a Runcandel guardian cadet from the lower class. Jin kept his eyes glued to the boy next to him, who was stuffing his face and devouring his food. Bellup, 13 years old, a commoner. After training, Jin narrowed his eyes as he recalled the past. Bellup had once faced having his cadet status stripped and being expelled. Curious, Jin asked. Is it that good? Startled, the boy replied blankly. Yes, sir, but his cheeks were still puffed up from chewing, the fork still in his mouth. Showing clear admiration, Bellup spoke eagerly. Of course, I am always grateful to the Runcandel clan. Thanks to them, I get to eat this delicious meat. And I am also grateful to you, young master, for always sharing your meat with me. Jin quickly cut off the long speech. Okay, that is enough. Stop. Curious, Jin asked. You said the exact same thing yesterday. Did you memorize that? All Bellup could do was scratch his head and laugh sheepishly. Jin suddenly gave him a serious look. Bell, you need to learn to carry yourself with more maturity. Honestly, babbling like that just makes other people look down on you. He stammered. Is that true? Jin's face grew stern and serious, raising his spoon as if to demonstrate. Exactly. Keep your back straight and show some confidence. Have pride in being a cadet of the Runcandel Guardian Knights. Bell timidly lowered his head and mumbled, But my grades are terrible. I cannot even reach 1 star. Jin closed his eyes, sighed, and advised him. Becoming a Runcandel cadet is never easy. Even though the food on the tray was disappearing, Jin kept offering kind guidance. No matter how low your grades are, you are still far better than any other 13-year-old kid out there. Understand? He could only muster a quiet reply. Yes, sir. Jin glanced at Bell, who was chewing his food, and made a silent assessment. His personality is too innocent. It is no exaggeration to say my family targeted him because of that. Jin recalled his past life. But how could someone so pure-hearted be guided onto the path of a swordmaster? After becoming a loyal dog of the Empire, he began walking down the ruthless path of a killer. Jin felt a deep pity for Bellup's tragic fate. When I heard he became a royal guardian, I was shocked. And when I heard he self-destructed, it broke my heart. If I just leave Bellup alone. Jin placed a piece of meat onto Bellup's tray, making him gasp out loud, Young master. Jin quickly reassured him, I am not hungry, you can have it. Bell looked at Jin with eyes sparkling with joy. Young master. Jin smiled as he watched the boy next to him, happily devouring his meal. I must make sure you do not get expelled this time, Jin resolved. Living a life of misfortune only to die in misery once was more than enough. And so, the two young boys shared the delicious meal, laughing and chatting together. Jin went back to change his clothes, counting on his fingers to review his progress as he walked. Shadow energy release is 2-star, mana is 4-star, and swordsmanship is 2-star. Folding his fingers down until only 2 remained, he felt highly satisfied. Things are going pretty smoothly. If I keep this up, I should be able to reach 3-star swordsmanship within 2 years. But before that, Luna drove her sword into the cold tiled floor and announced, My lovely little brother, today's training will be the same as yesterday's. The two stood facing each other, leaning their swords against the ground. She commanded, However, you will have to defend yourself in a different way. Jin politely replied, I understand, big sister. Luna looked at him and instructed, Use your mind's eye, little brother. A sinister blue-black magical aura emerged. Although Jin closed his eyes to comply, he was wary and felt a hint of anxiety. To look with the mind's eye, I guess I have to get through a training method I have never even heard of before. Luna emphasized, Observe using the eye of your mind. Jin obediently closed his eyes tightly to follow her lead. She continued to guide him. For those who live to sharpen their blades, obtaining the mind's eye is more important than anything. Luna also stood straight with her eyes closed, carefully repeating, Do not open your eyes. Even as he stood still and complied, doubts filled his head. The mind's eye is a realm that only knights above 7-star can reach. Yet, is she really teaching this to a mere 2-star like me? Jin could not stop wondering. Not only that, but the mind's eye is normally achieved by dispersing aura. Since I cannot use aura during training, I cannot comprehend it. He felt as though he had become a towering swordsman, clad in sturdy iron armor, wielding a sword in his hand, focusing all of his radiant energy, sending it surging into his blade. But Jin chose to trust her, his hand gripping the hilt tightly. No, I choose to trust my sister. I am sure she has her reasons. Focusing on the training, I believe that one day I will understand this exercise. Time flew by, and the two of them finished their training. Luna was generous with her praise. You did great today as well, Jin. You may head back now. Scratching his neck with a bright smile, he replied, Thank you, Sister Luna. Recalling his performance during training, she marveled to herself, as expected. I knew he would do well, but he always exceeds my expectations. He shows a level of focus and memory rarely seen in a 2-star knight. With his potential, I am sure he will grasp it in just a few years. Luna's face softened, filled with affection as she silently cheered him on. Keep growing, my little brother. As Jin returned to the training grounds, the trainees had already gathered and lined up neatly. They greeted him in unison. Welcome, young master. Belop stood timidly and dejectedly among the crowd. Everyone was warily sizing each other up, and tension filled the air. It makes sense, Garen laughed, resting his hands on his hips. This match accounts for a major part of the final evaluation. A good score is a shortcut to becoming a guardian knight, so I am sure everyone is extremely nervous. He turned back to Jin with a smile and said, Today is an important day for you too, young master. Jin, who was crossing his arms and observing the crowd, looked over in surprise. Garen explained, Lady Rosa said that if you defeat 10 people of higher rank today, you can join the intermediate training group early next year. Jin reacted calmly. Did Mother say that? That is good news. Suddenly, he glanced over to the other side. Seeing Belop holding his shoulders and shaking like a leaf made Jin worry. Belop is doing it again. Jin sighed, rubbing his forehead in frustration. I will hold back so he does not get expelled. But he really needs to be more confident. By now, Belop was so terrified his face had turned pale and his mouth was hanging wide open. Garen yelled, Attention, everyone will duel 3 times today, changing partners each time. The top 10 winners will face young Master Jin one-on-one. Everyone shouted in unison, Yes, instructor. Then, they all charged into the chaotic brawl. Swords clashed mercilessly, and some trainees were thrown hard to the ground. Jin watched closely, silently assessing their skills. They are not bad. They did not earn their cadet titles for nothing. Meanwhile, the defeated trainees were already lining up in order. Garen commanded, All right, those who were not chosen, return to your spots. They replied in unison, Yes, sir. Garen turned to him and said, Get ready, young master. Jin firmly gripped his sword and replied with confidence, Sure. Right after those words, he swung his sword, ruthlessly sending the weapon of the previous winner spinning into the air. Then, Jin estimated, I have already beaten 8 people, so I only need to defeat 2 more. He grew wary, thinking, to do that, the one I need to watch out for is. Just then, Garen turned around and yelled, Next up, get ready. A young girl with pink hair stepped forward. Mesa Milcano, a Runcandel Guardian Knight trainee, from the novice class, stepped forward confidently without a hint of fear. Please guide me, young Master Jin, she said. He knew exactly who she was. Mesa was a noble who would eventually become a Guardian Knight after completing her training in the future. Filled with determination, she raised her sword into a stance. Today, I will defeat you no matter what. Jin, on the other hand, had been looking forward to this match. The duel with Mesa was the most critical part of this test. Jin politely smiled and nodded at her, saying, All right, I am looking forward to it. Mesa leaped off the ground in a flash, driving her blade straight toward him like a raging storm. But Jin easily blocked that heavy strike, staring coldly at the clashing blades. Mesa had gotten stronger than before, but not to the point where he could not defeat her. Jin swung his sword to the left, calculating his moves. The issue was that he still had to defeat 8 more people after her. So, he effortlessly parried all her moves, without pushing himself. Their blades moved continuously, like spider webs stretching across the air. Unlike Jin, Mesa was struggling to hold her ground, her face growing more panicked. Why is he only using basic attacks when I have unleashed every technique I know? Her hands gripped her sword tightly, shaking with a mix of exhaustion and frustration. I am sure he is doing this on purpose, but why? Mesa's eyes widened. No way. Jin stood before her like a madman, smirking as he continuously swung his sword. Mesa thought in fear, is he looking down on me? Does he think I can never defeat him? Her fighting spirit flared up again, and she channeled all her strength to lift her sword. Fine then. Mesa spun her sword, aiming right for the center of Jin's blade, and screamed with all her might, "Take this, young master!" Bellup and the other trainees watching from the sidelines gasped in shock. The longer the fight went on, the more thrilled Jin became. He easily deflected every single attack, a smirk never leaving his face. Her distinct pink hair fluttered in the wind with every movement. I will not be pushed back anymore. This time, I will surpass the young master. Mesa summoned every ounce of her strength, her face tightening as she leaped into the air, aiming her sword straight at Jin. The two wooden swords clashed, but with a single horizontal slash, Jin snapped her blade right in half. The broken blade flew high into the air as the dust settled. Mesa stared blankly at the shattered hilt in her hand, unable to process what had just happened. How is this possible? The tip of Jin's sword was already pressing against her neck. Pointing his blade forward, he politely praised her. Good match, Mesa. Jin raised his own cracked sword, inspecting the damage, and muttered, It is useless now anyway. Startled, Mesa looked at his weapon. Seeing the countless cracks on his sword, she was utterly shocked. I cannot believe it. Did he target the exact same spot on my sword with every single one of those strikes? Our stamina and strength are equal, yet I lost in precision and persistence. How is that even possible? But slowly, she began to accept the reality. After all, he is a son of the Runcandel family. Mesa called out, Young master. She made a loud promise with all the passion in her heart. I will train with everything I have and definitely defeat you next time. Mesa made up her mind, refusing to keep losing like this. Above them, the sky gradually changed colors as time passed. Everything was going according to plan. Yet another cadet was defeated by Jin, left in complete shock. For someone like me right now, facing 10 trainees directly is extremely difficult. He coldly delivered a finishing blow. Thanks to my and Mesa's incredible victory, I made them believe they would lose in a direct clash. The wooden sword fell to the ground as the loser knelt there, motionless. He stood tall, looking down. With this person, that made 10. Thank goodness, everything was going according to plan. Jin wiped away his sweat, exhausted. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, Garen praised him. Well done, young master. He approached with a wide grin, showering him with praise. With this, you will be trained by a real Runcandel knight in the intermediate class next year. Congratulations in advance. Jin offered a polite smile in return. Thank you, Garen. I will be in your care until then. Garen then informed him of the time. It is almost lunchtime, so we should wrap up morning training. Jin paused to think for a moment and asked, How much time is left? Garen answered honestly, About 10 minutes. Why do you ask? All the cadets standing around were bruised and covered in bandages, except for Bellup, who was completely unscathed. He scanned the crowd and said, I still have one more person to face. Jin reached out and grabbed another wooden sword. Everyone wondered, Who? Then, he suddenly roared, Bellup Schmitz. Everyone widened their eyes, staring at him. Bellup himself was dumbfounded, unable to believe his ears. He pointed at himself and stammered, Young master. Me? Jin coldly ordered, Step forward. Let us fight. Terrified, Bellup could only stammer, not daring to take a step. But Jin raised his voice. Bellup. Standing against the sun, he pointed his sword at him and said, You cannot survive in the Runcandel clan like this. Using all his authority, he commanded and urged him, Step up. Step right up and fight me. I will defeat you. Bellup slowly walked forward. He hesitantly climbed onto the arena, his hand trembling as he raised his wooden sword. Why did the young master choose me? Is it because I am weak? Is he using me to establish dominance and discipline? With a stern face, Jin called out, Bellup! Startled to hear his name, he quickly replied, Yes, young master. Jin spoke coldly, with a hint of sarcasm. I am quite exhausted after fighting 10 people, but you are different. You look perfectly fine. Putting his hands on his hips confidently, Jin said, But I am still stronger than you. That is exactly why I want to fight you. Bellup was stunned. What? Confused, he asked, What do you mean by that? Before Bellup could even finish, Jin swung his sword, his eyes flashing as he charged aggressively. Though caught off guard, his soldier reflexes kicked in, and he managed to raise his sword just in time to block the strike. However, the sheer force of the impact sent Belop sliding backward. In utter shock, he cried out, "Young master, why are you doing this?" Before he could even finish his sentence, Jin unleashed a flurry of strikes. Strangely, Belop managed to deflect every single blow. Jin smirked mockingly. "Nice defense." Without letting his guard down, Belop replied, "Thank you," and swung his sword, forcing Jin to retreat. The wooden sword scraped against the ground, carving a deep groove and sending debris flying everywhere. Belop braced for another impact, gritting his teeth as his entire body tensed up. Jin paused, taking a few steps back with his sword. In a flash, he pressed his hand against the ground, lowered his posture, and dashed forward like a gust of wind directly at Belop. This time, Belop could not react in time and crashed onto the floor. He sat up, gritting his teeth as tears of frustration welled up in his eyes. Unable to take it anymore, Belop looked up and asked, "Young master, why are you doing this to me?" Jin replied slowly, his voice firm, "Do you really think I called you here just to have a simple match? I want a real fight with you." Standing tall, he pointed his sword down and said coldly, "If so, I might as well kill you right here." Jin gripped his sword tightly and commanded, "Get up. I will only hold back once." The crowd around them began to whisper in concern, when suddenly, the sword in Belop's hand began to glow. Sensing something, Mesa screamed, "That is, aura." The light grew brighter and brighter, and Belop's expression turned razor sharp. She quickly turned to the swordsmanship instructor, Garen, and said urgently, "Master, we must stop this match right now. If this goes on, the young master will be in serious danger." Jin cast a threatening glare at the cadets watching from the sidelines. "This is an order. Whatever you see here today, take it to your graves." Garen gritted his teeth reluctantly and replied, "I understand." A flicker of pain passed through Belop's eyes. "Is this really what you want, young master?" "That is correct," Jin replied in a bone-chilling tone. "If you know how to wield aura, then do not back down." Gritting his teeth in frustration, Belop shouted, "You have made a big mistake. Young master, if you wanted to fight me so badly, then." Belop roared, furiously charging forward to attack Jin. "You should have fought me first." Jin frowned in slight surprise, raising his sword to block the strike, but the wooden blade could not handle the pressure and snapped clean in half. Jin grit his teeth and stepped back to dodge the strike. His eyes widened, completely amazed by his opponent. I had no idea he was this strong. Remembering their past spars, Jin knew Belop was formidable. Whenever the cadets challenged each other, Belop could read his opponent's skills and tactics, and he knew exactly how to avoid getting hurt, even when he lost. But Jin never expected him to be able to use aura. While Jin was still lost in thought, Belop lunged forward, unleashing all his fury in a flurry of rapid slashes. Even though Jin's sword was broken, his opponent didn't stop. In a flash, Jin threw a punch at Belop's sword arm. Belop grit his teeth as his hand trembled, suddenly sensing something close in on him. The sword slipped from his hand, and Jin instantly put Belop in a headlock and slammed him to the floor. Belop struggled to break free, but seeing that the fight was over, Jin slowly loosened his grip. Belop painfully crawled away from Jin's hold. Still unwilling to accept defeat, Belop demanded, "Why did you stop? You said you wanted to fight to the end, so shouldn't you have finished the job?" With a voice full of resentment, Belop asked, "Do you find it amusing to toy with people like this?" Jin replied with a serious look, "Is that really the kind of person you think I am?" Still, Belop pressed on, "Then why?" Jin looked at Belop, his voice filled with reluctance. "Provoking you like this actually hurts me too," Jin confessed. "It hurts a lot more than you think." He clenched his fists tight. "What do you even know about me to torment me like this?" Belop cried. Jin slowly bent down to pick up his sword. "You're right, I don't know who you are," Jin said, dropping to one knee as his voice softened. "But I do know one thing." His eyes turned serious, and his words carried a deep weight. "Compassion is a privilege you can only have when you are strong. You are weaker than me, and you're much too kind." Jin then placed a hand on Belop's shoulder. "Of course, I admire that about you. But if you stay this soft, you won't survive a single day in this living hell." He encouraged him, "Get stronger so you can protect that kind heart of yours." Hearing this, everyone around them was deeply moved. "That kindness goes for me, and for everyone else, too." Belop broke down in tears, while Jin gently comforted him. "I'm sorry for putting you through such a harsh trial." Right then, the kitchen staff walked in carrying fresh ingredients. The pink-haired guy gasped in surprise. "Oh my goodness," he awkwardly continued. "Ah, looks like training isn't over yet. We'll come back later." Jin looked at them and replied, "No, it's fine. Just bring them in." Belop then softly reminded him, "Young master, please come and receive today's rations." Jin stood up with absolute poise. "All right, I'll go grab rations for both of us." Deep inside the dark forest, Chiron quietly listened to Garen's report. "So, that's what my youngest son had to say?" Garen bowed respectfully. "Yes, Patriarch." Chiron burst out laughing. "I see. It looks like the boy has made his choice." Thinking of Jin comforting Belop, Chiron smirked. "He plans to protect the weak while ruling with absolute power?" After a brief silence, he instructed, "If that's the case, let him be. I want to see what he's truly capable of." "Garen, go back and tell all of this to the boy." Garen immediately obeyed. "Yes, my lord." At that moment, Chiron's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. "I shall give him his very first mission." In January 1795, 15-year-old Jin was officially recognized as a 3-star knight. During their first vacation, some cadets returned home, while others stayed behind to train on their own and test their progress. Once they reached the intermediate level, wooden swords were no longer used for training. Instead, they were replaced by custom-made real swords. Many cadets commissioned blacksmiths to craft unique swords just for them, and Jin was also searching the family armory for a blade that would suit him. Suddenly, a voice called out. Luna laughed and sighed. "Ugh, finding a sword that fits you is such a pain." Because she had insisted on choosing a sword for him, all the decision-making power had ended up in her hands. 1 month ago, she had practically begged him, "Jin, please, let me choose a sword for you." "Pretty please?" Left with no choice, he reluctantly agreed, thinking, "Oh well, she has a better eye for weapons than me anyway, so whatever she picks should be fine." Right after that, Luna appeared, carrying a colossal sword in her hands. Jin's eyes widened in shock. She began babbling excitedly. "This baby is called the Slaughter of Bales. I used to swing this around all the time when I was your age. It was a massive, razor-sharp blade. Back when I was around your age, I thought I'd be using stuff like this." Luna looked at it affectionately, her voice filled with nostalgia. "I bet this was the prototype for my beloved Crantel." Her eyes shone with expectation. "So, what do you think? Do you like it?" Jin stood frozen, completely dumbfounded. Sister Luna," he stammered, forcing a polite tone. "I'm really grateful that you helped me pick a sword, but I don't think this one is quite right for me." She nodded with a hint of disappointment. "Ah, I get it. No worries. I was only joking." Jin's expression immediately darkened. "I highly doubt she was joking." Luna waved the massive sword in front of him, clearly not giving up just yet. "But seriously, the Slaughter of Bales is an amazing weapon. It might be a little heavy, but it's really not that bad." Realizing her attempt at persuasion was completely useless, she fell silent for a moment, then gave in. "Fine, I will do as you say. I will choose another sword for you." Jin felt a huge weight lift off his chest. Luna led him to another room, saying as she opened the door, "I really put a lot of effort into choosing a sword for you." Inside was an entire armory, filled with countless swords. Luna was determined. She wanted to find a sword that suited him best, one that only he could use. She walked over, picked up a sword, and held it up. "And this is my choice for you." Jin was left completely speechless. Luna explained, "Since you chose Barisada in the beginning, I thought this would be the perfect sword for you." She drew the sword from its scabbard, the metal gleaming in the light. He suddenly realized that this sword was directly connected to Barisada, the one used by the first patriarch. "Bradamante," Jin whispered as he gently caressed the blade, while Luna looked on with satisfaction. "You like this sword, do you not?" He praised it with pure joy. "Yes, this is truly the most special sword out of thousands of legendary blades." Jin held Bradamante in his hands, thinking to himself that this was the very sword he had sworn to get by any means necessary. "I never expected her to choose it for me." He thought to himself, "Both Bradamante and Barisada are perfect for channeling shadow energy. If I had chosen this sword myself, the others would have definitely objected and forced me to give it up." Jin said with a look of worry, "This Bradamante sword is something all of my older siblings want, so I do not even know how to repay you for choosing it for me." Luna agreed. "That does sound like trouble." Then, she placed her hand on her chest and looked him straight in the eye. "Jin, I guess you still have not let your guard down around me, have you?" Luna pouted. "I am actually a bit disappointed." He quickly waved his hands. "No, that is not it at all. I am being completely honest." She pointed her finger right in front of Jin's face, playfully setting a condition. Oh, really? But I am still disappointed. So, you have to comfort my poor, broken heart. He stammered. What? Luna urged. Close your eyes, Jin. Let us begin our training. He agreed. All right. Under the clear blue sky, her voice was as gentle as drifting clouds. Do you know what I am talking about? Jin replied firmly. Of course I do, Sister Luna. She nodded in satisfaction. Good. But I still have something else to teach you today. Luna patted his shoulder, startling him. What is it? She explained softly. Your family members might always try to tear each other down, but they are also the ones who love you unconditionally. Luna's eyes shone with sincerity as she emphasized, keep this deep in your heart. Then she grabbed Jin's shoulders, shaking him as she raised her voice. And stop being so gloomy. He flinched, stammering, I get it, I am sorry. She spoke slowly, but with a heavy heart. I have lived a lonely life in this family since before you were even born. I have had enough of living like that. So please understand that I do not want you to go through the same kind of life. Jin gently held his sore arm, his voice softening. I know. Luna walked away gracefully, her head held high as if nothing had happened, giving a gentle yet firm order. All right, now, let us begin training. Jin, feel it with your whole heart. Inside the luxurious room, a voice echoed, Murakhan. He held up his newly acquired sword to show off. What do you think? He did not even bother to turn around, remaining sprawled out reading his comic book. Put it back, kid. You cannot master shadow energy yet, so you will not be able to use it. Jin froze. What? Murakhan advised in a low voice. If you want to use Bradamante, you need to reach at least a 3-star level in shadow energy. But you are only a 2-star kid, right? His voice turned serious. You cannot even hope to trigger the sword's awakened form. Jin was annoyed, sheathing the sword. I will reach 3-star soon, he said determinedly. I will be able to use it in no time. Right then, Murakhan slammed his book shut. He was absolutely furious now. How arrogant. Open your ears and listen carefully to what I have to say, kid. Murakhan's face darkened as he ruthlessly pressed down on Jin's head, hissing each word through gritted teeth. Barisada and Bradamante are not swords. You can just swing around recklessly. You need to reach at least a 3-star level in shadow energy. That is the bare minimum. His hand pressed down harder and harder, his harsh voice locking him in place. Just stick to ordinary swords and wait until you reach a 5-star level in shadow energy first. Got it? He stubbornly shrugged off Murakhan's hand, his eyes still defiant. But, you know I am not the impatient type. In short, as long as I reach a 5-star level in shadow energy this year, it is fine, right? Murakhan was so angry that a blue vein popped on his forehead. He grabbed Jin's head again, trying to snap him out of his daydream. Even if you rank first in the shadow energy tournament, mastering that power is still completely absurd. I am saying this for your own good. Taking a heavy breath, Murakhan lowered his voice, but it was dripping with sarcasm, because it is so ridiculous that even a dog would laugh in your face. If you understand what I am saying, then stop talking nonsense. Jin gently reached out to grab the comic book. Suddenly, he snatched the book right out of his hands, his voice dripping with defiance. Say that again. What did you just say? Murakhan yelled, his face turning pale. Damn it, put it down. I said, put it down right now. Just then, a woman appeared, catching them both off guard. Young Master Jin turned around. Gilly? What's wrong? Did something happen? She walked in with an awkward look on her face. Instructor Garen is looking for you, young master. He was supposed to come here himself, but he said he needs to look at the map while discussing the tactical briefing with you, so he needs you to go over there. Murakhan took the chance to snatch the comic book back, cradling it like a priceless treasure. My precious comic book, Jin muttered suspiciously. Tactical briefing? Gilly added. Instructor Garen has assigned you your first mission. As soon as the vacation is over, you will have to depart immediately. He scratched his head and gave a slight nod. Is that so? Jin put his hands in his pockets and calmly said, I guess it's about time, huh? I'm already a 3-star swordsman now, but departing right after the break is a bit strange, isn't it? She chimed in, her voice filled with worry. I suspect it is because it is an extremely difficult mission. Normally, intermediate-level missions and above are only assigned to them. But he remained indifferent. They probably gave me this mission because my progress has finally been recognized. Jin turned around, giving a casual wave as he said goodbye. I will go check it out. Gilly, you stay here with Murakhan. She bowed politely. Yes, young master. Please go ahead. The black door creaked open. He stepped into the briefing room, scanned the area, and spoke up. Garen, I heard I've been assigned a mission. He replied, Greetings, young master. Aside from you, 10 beginner cadets have also been assigned to this mission. Getting straight to the point, Garen spread a map across the table. You will be split into 2 teams to carry out the mission. This is a search mission in the vicinity of the southern border of the Kingdom of Zane. Someone asked, Isn't that kingdom close to the Beastmen's territory? I believe it is also near the area marked as the White Wolf tribe's lair. Jin glanced over the map, and his heart sank. Low-level cadets should not be sent to an area like this. He thought to himself, if this is supposed to be a first mission, it is way too difficult. The time frame is also much shorter than usual. An assistant stepped forward and handed him a stack of documents. Young master, here is the map and the detailed profiles of the team members. The others whispered among themselves as they looked over the papers. Are our team members really just cadets with pre-intermediate grades? Even Bellup is here, the one with inconsistent performance? Suspicion flared within Jin. Could it be? Did someone intentionally set this up? The image of his father flashed in his mind. A setup, huh? If my fight with Bellup was reported to father, then this mission is definitely meant to test me. His eyes grew cold. Fine, father. I will make sure to show you my unwavering conviction. 3 days later, at the southern border, the goal of this mission was to find Cumberville, the heir to the Kingdom of Zane. We will set up a base camp at the center of the southern border once we arrive. Once everything is set up, each team will begin their search and share information by sending someone back to the camp at designated times. From now on, you will address me as commander, not young master. The injured will stay at the camp and rest as needed. The team members' briefing concluded. Let's hope the scout leader is still alive. Garen reported to the commander. The scouting team spotted beastmen of the Watertail tribe. Jin was skeptical. The Watertail tribe. Jin was not too concerned, as they were just a peaceful tribe that avoided predators. We probably won't venture near the territory of the neighboring White Wolf tribe anyway. Jin ordered, All right, Bellup, since the snow will slow you down, head out to the camp 2 hours early, then head back to Sector 13. He acknowledged the order. Understood, Commander. Jin continued his instructions. The rest of you, search Sector 13. They chorused, Yes, Commander. Though he gave his orders decisively, a bad feeling began to creep into Jin's heart. I have a bad feeling about this. Father must have assigned this mission directly, but everything is going way too smoothly. He tried to calm himself down. Or did I misunderstand his intention to test me with this mission? Suddenly, one of the Watertail beastmen spoke up. The other team members sneered. They looked so pathetic. Trembling, the beastman held out a fish skewer. If you are hungry, take this. It is a gift. Jin politely declined. Thank you. I will repay you later. Jin picked up the map and pondered. Beyond Sector 13 lay the beastmen's territory, and low-level cadets would stand no chance against them. Then Jin told himself, I do not need to push myself too hard just for the sake of results. I will spend the next 3 days confirming the searched areas. Just then, hurried footsteps approached, and someone called out for the young master. Bellup arrived, gasping for breath. Young Master Jin. Jin turned around. What happened? Bellup's panicked shout froze the entire team in their tracks. The second team was ambushed. Jin immediately ordered, Everyone, get ready to move. Bellup. What is the situation? He hurriedly reported. Team 2 scattered to evade the enemy. One person managed to escape to the base camp to report the situation. Jin pressed. Were they ambushed by beastmen? Bellup shook his head. No, they were ambushed by humans. We have confirmed there are 3 of them. Attacking the Runcandels with only 3 people? His eyes narrowed in suspicion. There is no way. I am certain they have backup. Jin immediately issued his orders, telling Eddington and David to head back to camp and guard the perimeter. Engaging the enemy is strictly forbidden. Report back as soon as possible. The squad immediately complied. Yes, sir. His voice grew quiet amidst the snowy woods. There were too many enemies in the area. As Jin ran, his mind raced with calculations. What was their goal? Why target Squad 2 instead of Squad 1, where he was stationed? He fell silent again. I do not know who they are, but our squad was definitely attacked. I will make sure they pay dearly for laying a hand on the Runcandels. Sierra suddenly noticed something off. Young master, there is blood. Bellup looked on with a terrified expression. This can't be. Is Mesa? Is everyone in Squad 2 dead? Jin cut him off, keeping his voice calm to reassure them. The blood is still fresh. Jin knelt down, dabbing a bit of blood onto his fingertip and rubbing it gently. There are no signs of a struggle or torn flesh. He concluded that a battle had taken place here, and Squad 2 had retreated. Judging by the footprints, only one person had ambushed them. Sierra suddenly made a discovery and spoke up. "Young master, we found discarded bandages. They seem to belong to a healer." Jin was pleased. "Good job. Where did you find them?" Sierra replied shortly. "To the west." A theory flashed in Jin's mind. So, while treating the wounded after being pursued, they were ambushed again and forced to move further west. Without hesitation, Jin stood up and ordered, "Sierra, regroup with Eddington and back them up." "Let's go, Bellop." Bellop nodded. "Yes, young master." With that, the two of them set off, following the tracks until Bellop whispered, "It is Squad 2, young master." Jin whispered cautiously, "I know," but his eyes never left the group ahead. Mesa was not with them. On top of that, the number of ambushers had increased by 1. Jin slowly lowered his voice. Bellop closed his eyes for a moment. After 2 seconds had passed, Jin commanded, "Attack the one on the left." Drawing his sword in a ready stance, Bellop replied, "Understood." Holding Bradamante, Jin recalled Murakan's teachings about the nature of shadow energy. In an instant, he unleashed a surge of power from his blade. The sharpness and destructive power of the shadow energy surrounding his sword intensified. He lunged straight at his target with swift, devastating movements. The sword's true property echoed in his mind. It eroded physical matter itself. Scott stood dazed as an enemy collapsed dead right before his eyes. Meanwhile, Bellop rushed straight toward Hades, who froze in shock. What the hell? A sudden sense of dread made Hades look up. At that exact moment, Jin descended like a dark shadow, unsheathing Bradamante with lethal grace. Bellop closed the distance, forcing Hades to raise his sword in a desperate block. But right behind him, Jin delivered a lethal slash. Hades collapsed, screaming in agony. Jin turned to check on his squad. "Is everyone all right?" Kiko spoke up, "Young master," clutching his injured arm as he struggled to stand. "We are fine, but they captured Mesa." Taimon added, his voice heavy with guilt. "We are so sorry, young master." Jin replied calmly, "It is fine. Focus on treating the wounded first." As Hades thrashed frantically on the ground, Jin looked down at him with pure disdain. "Huh, are you begging for mercy? Judging by your gear, you look like those foolish Zipful followers." Bradamante gleamed in his hand. "I will give you 2 options." Jin's expression turned ice cold. "Option 1. You tell me your faction, your goal, and your base, and I will grant you a quick, painless death. Option 2. You keep your mouth shut, and you die in agony just like the rest of your comrades." His voice was absolute. "I keep my promises. My name is Jin Runcandel, and I swear this on the laws and honor of my clan." Hades gritted his teeth, his tough exterior completely shattered by sheer terror. "Fine, just please spare my family," he confessed. "I belong to a revolutionary group called Kinzalo." Jin's eyes narrowed with curiosity. Kinzalo? The name sounded familiar. It was the infamous terrorist organization that was highly active around the time of his past death. Memories flooded back of the global chaos they caused when they assassinated King Jin and massacred innocent civilians. They called themselves revolutionaries, but Kinzalo's true goal was to make their own leader the ruler of the entire world. With that in mind, Jin continued his interrogation. "Are you trying to spark a rebellion in the kingdom of Jin by slaughtering Runcandel soldiers?" Panicking, Hades desperately explained. "I am just a low-level grunt. I do not know anything about their grand plans. I do not know where the main base is either, but my branch operates near the entrance to the Beastmen territory. They have about 24-star warriors and mages." Jin growled. "Final question. Why did you capture Mesa?" Hades replied, his voice trembling. "It was for propaganda, to promote our revolution. We had strict orders to capture female soldiers alive." Scott gritted his teeth, cursing under his breath. "You sick bastards." Terrified, the man cried out, "That is everything I know, I swear." Jin raised his sword. "I keep my promises." With a single swift stroke, he ended Hades' life. Jin turned to Bellop. "How long has it been since Mesa was captured?" Bellop replied, "About an hour ago." Jin commanded, "That means they are still near the entrance to the Beastmen territory. Once you have finished administering first aid, head back to base and request backup." Hearing this, Kiko grew deeply concerned. "Forgive me, but are you planning to go alone, young master?" he asked, growing more anxious by the second. "Those ambushers are all 4-star warriors, and there are 20 of them in total." Scott chimed in. "He is right, young master. Going alone is far too dangerous. He desperately tried to convince Jin, "We are soldiers. It is only natural for us to fall in battle. So please." Jin cut him off. "Just as you said, Scott, you are prepared for the worst, but one of our soldiers has been taken. A Runcandel cannot simply stand by and do nothing." Jin's voice was firm. "I am stronger than everyone thinks. So, follow my orders. I will punish any form of resistance or disobedience. Also, Bellup, since every member of Squad 2 is injured. You are their strongest soldier now, so you must stay sharp. You understand what I mean, right?" Bellup agreed. "I will keep that in mind, young master." Jin then immediately dashed off. He pictured Mesa tied up, silently praying in his heart. "Please don't let me be too late." In the freezing night, Jin assessed the situation and thought to himself, "Our enemies have 24-star soldiers." He let out a tired sigh. His swordsmanship was only around 3-star, along with 4-star magic and 3-star shadow energy release magic. Jin walked through the misty wind with a heavy heart. His growth rate was pretty good, but I can't deal with all of them at once in my current state. Right now, the top priority is saving Mesa. Even if I use my magic later, I'll try to avoid fighting as much as possible and focus on finding Mesa. Jin cast a detection spell. Thin webs of light spread from his hands, covering the area like a spider web. He thought to himself, checking the terrain. And what if I combine Wind Chaser magic here as well? His hands continuously wove magic circles. He ordered the green light rays to head toward the meadow. Jin immediately moved in the direction pointed out by the magic. They couldn't have gone far yet, but on the way, he was suddenly ambushed. Beams of light repeatedly tore through the air toward Jin, accompanied by a shouting voice. "It's that Runcandel kid." Right after that, a group of figures aggressively dashed out of the bushes. His hand glowed once more, and surges of green light erupted, launching straight at the crowd. They were completely stunned. "Magic? That Runcandel kid is using magic?" Shouts rang out in the chaos. "Damn it, just kill him!" Jin immediately drew his sword, Bradamante, to fight back. With one swift slash, Mills was sent flying. The mage holding a fiery staff roared from behind. "Get out of the way, Mills!" He immediately ignited it, and violent flames burst forth, rushing straight toward him. In the blink of an eye, a stream of fire completely wrapped around Jin's arm. He laughed triumphantly, believing he had pinned Jin down. Even though one of Jin's arms was swallowed by the flames, he remained completely unharmed. Using his other hand, Jin immediately delivered a fatal blow to his opponent. The flames around his arm were not only controlled, but they also turned into a fierce weapon for a counterattack. Now, Jin stood tall, one hand gripping his sword tightly, while the other held the blazing fire in his grasp. The hooded man was terrified at the sight, yet he was determined to defeat Jin, even if fire was useless against him. He instantly changed his attack, turning the flames into ice and screaming, "Then I'll tear you apart with ice." With a small piece of ice piercing his chest, his gaze remained bone-chillingly cold as he lunged through the ice as if he couldn't feel a thing. That sight made the hooded man cry out in terror. "No way!" Then, completely stunned, he stammered, "How?" Through the silent night, a furious scream echoed, "My magic!" Jin took one step at a time, silently cursing those Kinzello bastards. Observing the scene before him, he noted, "It seems they have no intention of hiding their tracks at all, do they? They are really underestimating their opponent." Jin reached his hand down. "They must have met someone else here and traveled in a wagon. Kinzello is a highly structured group, so they'll probably divide the loot based on rank." He picked up a map and kept calculating since they wouldn't dare touch the rewards meant for high-ranking members. "This is my only chance to rescue Mesa safely." Jin unfolded the map. "I'm currently near the Beastman's territory, so their base must be close by." With that thought, he summoned fire magic. "I'll create a distraction and find an opening to rescue Mesa." Immediately after, fireballs shot out like bullets, and a raging fire engulfed the forest. Jin continued to summon blue vortexes, figuring that if he did this, they would rush outside to put out the fire. As the flames erupted, people nearby cried out, "Fire! What the hell is going on all of a sudden?" Frantic voices rang out. "Where did this fire come from?" "Put it out now. Get some water." Jin watched from behind. With a look of disdain, "Can't you guys even put out a fire properly?" A giant man panicked and yelled, "Mages! Use your water and ice spells." He looked at him, wondering, is that guy their leader? The fire grew larger by the second, throwing them into a deeper panic. "Boss, the fire won't go out," the man screamed. "Do Do you think a fire would just start on its own in this weather? Someone definitely set this. Find him. He suddenly felt someone behind him. The chaotic noise continued to flare. Move faster. Get the mages. Quick. Through the thick smoke, Jin held a key. He smiled with satisfaction. Good. I found the way in. The door creaked open, and he stepped inside, searching while quietly sighing. It's pretty cold in here. Where could Mesa be? Suddenly, a trapdoor appeared before him, making Jin wonder. A basement. Inside, he spotted long, feminine hair faintly visible in the darkness. Jin immediately called out, "Mesa!" She turned her head, her voice trembling. "Young master." Mesa immediately asked in panic, "Young master, why are you here? It is so dangerous." He gently reassured her, his voice firm. "Do not worry about me. Can you walk?" Tied up tightly, she struggled to reply, "Yes, but I do not think I can run." Jin immediately sliced through the ropes. "All right, let me help you up." Suddenly the ground shook violently. He paused. "What is that sound?" Mesa panicked, softly calling, "Young master." She looked straight into his eyes, her voice unusually serious. "Can you promise me one thing?" Jin frowned. "Stop talking, Mesa." But she went on anyway, her voice filled with determination. "If we end up in a desperate situation, please, just leave me behind. Young master, you are far too important. We cannot let anything happen to you." Ignoring her words, he helped her up anyway. "Let us get out of here first. It is too dangerous." The moment they stepped out of the basement, they were surrounded by debris and corpses. Jin instantly realized this was the work of a beastman from the warrior tribe. Both of them silently observed the situation. From a distance, a massive figure emerged. An opponent with pure white fur was slowly approaching a member of the White Wolf tribe. Before Mesa could even finish speaking, she was knocked unconscious. "Young master, I will buy us some time, so please hurry." Kuajito roared and cursed. "You useless bastards. If you cannot even put out a simple fire, there is no reason for you to stay alive." He glared at Jin and asked directly, "You are the one who did all of this, aren't you, kid?" Unfazed, Jin replied decisively, "That is right. I am the son of Chiron Runcandel, Jin Runcandel." His gaze was as sharp as a sword as he commanded. "Reveal your name, beastman." Kuajito bared his teeth in a delighted grin. "A. Runcandel. You are a